It's going to be another episode of Snake and Banter. Now, notice how I did that a little bit differently, because obviously now I've just been informed that this is now a show that I'm bored of, and I'm just gooning while I do the show. So apparently, listen, a lot of people have called me a wanker over the years. A lot of people have said a lot of my points and how self-aggrandizing they are, Maui, a sort of intellectual masturbation. It turns out I've just gone one step further. I've actually actualized it, and I'm actually, you know what? Now you know why this show lasts so long, guys, and people talk for 10 minutes, because I have to get off. It'd be really... Think how hard it'd be to jerk off while talking about CS and have someone come in with a counterpoint or something. That'd really harsh my balls at that point in time. But anyway, if you watch my YouTube channel, spoiler, everyone on Livestreamfails didn't, I do have a video where I actually just show you that was just a second of an ASMR video, and it wasn't actually anything even related to porn. But anyway, shout out to Livestreamfails and everyone who did make. I mean, sadly now, that joke at the opener, Maui, about Paladin being the most basic fucking guest doesn't even work. He's on the second highest viewed episode ever of this show and of the LFN CSGO channel. Like, bro, he's literally got something now, like 30 or 40k more views than episodes with like Alexi B and like, Magic's after he won the major and stuff. So again, I don't know what that says about the internet and media as it is. But anyway, that is what happened last episode. Spoiler, also, this isn't a live show, guys. So the whole live stream fails. There was no live stream. I didn't fail, and I'm the one who recorded it. So if I was secretly watching porn, why didn't I just edit it out? Like, none of it makes sense, but I'll tell you what, it was funny. I'll give you that, and also thanks for the 40k extra views. We do appreciate them. Obviously, don't anyone tell Paladin it was just because of that 1 second. Let him believe he's finally hit the mainstream. His brands pop in. Maybe he gets a fucking gig off this. Who knows? But anyway, our guest for this episode, which, look, I can't even make a joke and say you're like a small guest. Maybe I'll fuck up and play a clip at some point and get 100k views. It's going to be Nohte from HLTV. Now, Nohte, I'll let you say this yourself. Your title is something like lead writer, not editor, right?
Senior staff writer.
There you go. I know the key thing is you want it to be writer, not editor, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, by the way, for people who don't know, because a lot of the roles at HLTV, no one really understands what the purview is, right? As well as doing articles and stuff like that, I want to actually ask this just for myself. Are you the person who does all the episodes of the like So-and-So Come Here podcast? Or whatever? Do you only do some of them? How does the division of labor work on that show?
Yeah, so it's Harry and I's show, so it's him and I basically with a guest. Okay. And yeah, exactly.
By the way, I also think that is a great fucking concept for a show, because not only one does it play on a famous forum meme, like, Spirit fans come here or whatever, but also it isn't then just a meme like comedy show. It's then also trying to like analyze the topic as well. It's a pretty good show, actually. I think it's a good concept because it's got like a single topic theme, right?
Yeah, we also started the segment where we have HLTV threads at the end of the show where we, pick whatever topical thing we're talking about and try and find the most absurd HLTV threads that discuss the same thing. I think we had Hooch on and he really enjoyed what he called spirit fan fiction. So he was a big fan of that. Also, just nice of you to bring another brown guy on to try and double up on the Annie success. Okay. Listen,
the formula worked before. You're going to go with it again, haven't you? I know, exactly.
Just run them dry.
Anyway, the sad thing is as well, Maui, look, I can't lie. Part of me did think about, is there some way we could like kayfabe engineer it at the moment like that? Like, can we just have like, maybe you have a stream or something you accidentally put, we'll figure something out in the future to try and get some more free hits and grift you all. We'll do it.
I mean, whenever we do that, it's gonna, we have to break the view count of Richard.
Oh, yes, you're right. Yes, because he has like 93k or something. Yeah, we have to get 100k on an episode, yeah.
Yeah, we need it. We need to get to this.
I've even realised there is actually a version of this. You'll be very well aware of this, Note. There is a version of this on HLTV forums. The game, if people don't know, and believe me, it is a game and people are very well aware of this, is about the character limit that shows up on the front page when a thread is there. So what people would do, if you don't know, guys, is write a few words, figure out the exact number of characters, and let's say have the last word, Note, be something like the word night. But let's say maybe only the first three letters get shown because it cuts off. So you can imagine, Maui, what that thread might say, like, come here, night, but with only the first three. And what they were playing on was that technically that thread, there's nothing wrong with it, it's just a normal thread. But they would, listen, they know what they're doing on that site. I'll give them that. Like, they figured all the angles out, no, they know everything about how the website works, I've noticed. Like, they've nailed all that, mate.
I try not to use HLTV forums until I'm looking up threads for that show specifically, because there's only so much I can take.
True. Right, let's do it then. Let's get into the episode. So, Nohte, obviously, we always have the guest start. So, what is good in CS at the moment? What are you enjoying?
I was going to say that I'm glad that Asian CS is finally on the rise. And when I was trying to figure out this topic, I was going through some past shows, and then I saw that Maui had somehow snuck in Asian CS being good as his ugly point in a different show, which is just insane to me. Okay. But overall, I think after Mongols made their run to the final of the major, on top of that, you also
I think I know why. Off the top of my head, I think his bullshit angle, because you might know, there was like, that's why it was ugly. There was like a hater angle there. I think his angle was like, Asian CS is better than NA, and that's why it's ugly or something. Wasn't it something like that, Maui? Wasn't it some angle like that?
I mean, it's just using the ugly framework loosely enough that I can interject anything I really want. But yes, it was in the
by the way, in that sense, you have to.
I think he tried to make it like Jam Young needs to learn English or something.
Okay.
As well.
Oh yeah, that's true. He should be actually.
By the way, that is all. You have also then stumbled upon how we are like the HLTV forum users abusing the loophole of the front page, because it is true. Good. Listen, that has to just be good. Bad, self-explanatory. Ugly. Oh, don't worry, we will torture that one to just get whatever third point we want onto the show. So you can just find any way it's ugly, can't you, basically? It turns out the ugly is just insert your point you want as your third point, but then you just like rationalize why it's an ugly point. So okay, right, you're picking it as actual good, just unabashed good. Asian CS is here, yeah?
Yeah, I think Asian CS was always, the third region for a very long time. I think you talked about it on a lot of shows where you thought when Chinese teams or Asian teams actually finally started playing the game and, adapting to proper top level strategies, that eventually we would hit this point where they would just take over. They haven't taken over yet, for sure. But then you had, as I said, Mongols making the final of the major. You had Linvision making stage 3. You had Tyloo making stage 2. And now you have them at Fissure. And Tyloo made the playoffs. Linvision made the playoffs. Now I'm saying this after I think they lost like 13-2 to Astralis on map 1. And then they took them to OT on map 2. But overall, I think the trajectory of Asian CS has steadily improved, and we're actually not seeing them win off the kind of gimmicks that we used to when Tyloo first popped on the scene, and like they were playing Cobble and they were playing this like ultra passive defense on B that was catching teams out because everybody was going aggro on plat. It was like the weirdest game of Cobble back then, by the way. But now we're actually seeing them play top level strategies and properly execute them, and you're not seeing them choke as much. Like Tyloo are playing this event with Zoking, their coach, as a stand-in for G, and they still made the semifinals. So that shows me consistency, and it shows that they actually have this ability to take the team structure and adapt it and continue winning without just individuals firing off, because you're losing your opera and you're still playing the event pretty well. And you have obviously Jam Young as a talent who's playing overall an excellent tournament for them. So I think this trajectory that we're seeing from Asian CS overall has really, there's still some ways to go, I think, in terms of becoming like a region that's going to consistently contend for trophies. But they're at the point where I think we're going to start seeing more of this rise. Like even Chinggis Warriors at the major, yeah, they lost. I think they went out like 1-3 or something, but the level they were playing at in the game, you could see that there's actually some promise there. And I think a lot of the matches that I watched where they lost due to inexperience. It wasn't even the fact that they weren't playing well overall. You saw them like choke in some late rounds. You saw them make some poor decisions, but overall, like the floor level that a lot of these teams are bringing to these events has been raised so much that I think it's a really good sign for Asian CS in the future as well.
I feel like we're at a point where it's two factors for me that are converging. It's one, the Asian teams are playing a brand of CS that is a bit more in tune with the European meta, but the other factor is that the CS2 meta actually moved in the direction of how East Asian players want to play the game. Being a little bit more active, being a little bit more aggressive is exactly what people like Jam Young would have always wanted to do. It's just that in CSGO, holding angles was so strong, playing passively, turtling, that was so good, that if you didn't have really great ways to break into sites, then you were just kind of stuck behind a brick wall of a smoke that you can't really edge around. Nowadays, you can make all these more individually focused plays. I feel like Tyloo have the right balance right now of the right amount of structure, and they're not too off meta like they were 10 years ago, where they were running setups that almost just felt objectively and logically flawed. It just felt like, why are two guys holding the same angle and they're almost in a position that overlaps in terms of coverage, and even like one flash could cover both of these guys. Like they weren't playing to each other's weaknesses and trying to cover up on each other. So, but now you're getting this this great convergence of just everything working in their direction. On top of the fact that they're just, I think they probably just put in a lot of great work. The way that Lin Vision carried themselves throughout this event, even though they've fallen now, and the major itself feels like, if they have the right game plans going into games, they can find the upsets. The famous quote being the coach of Lin Vision only looked at Falcons for just a couple hours. I think he only had that much time, to be fair.
Right.
But he only looked at them for a couple hours to find all of the prep needed in order to counter what they were doing on Nuke. So I feel like the brain power is going in the right direction for them. So I'm glad that it's happening, because it feels like it needed to be something like this, with all of the extraneous details that push East Asian CS down in the past, which Thorin knows all about this stuff. So I think it's really cool that we're getting another region rising up, because in contrast, and to bring something negative to the table, North America does not look like it looks like we were almost there. We were getting something, and then that just fell off. And Brazilian CS, they're even having to import people now. So I can't even really, I guess you would.
They don't have to, but they are. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. Well, they couldn't put together a true top 10 team without bringing in other people from South America or from even now Kazakhstan. Like, what's that about?
By the way, the obvious joke I'd make there, even though I looked it up and actually Nico was all right in that game, he wasn't even like the lowest frag or anything. The joke would be, though, when you said like they looked up all the prep they needed to do to like beat Falcons, you are right. It was the second BO1 that you play on the same day when Falcons already lost. So you're right, at most you'd only have a few hours. But the joke would be, there's a famous Elseworlds comic story called Red Son about Superman, Maui. And Elseworlds, if you don't know it, in DC Comics, is sort of like not supposed to be canon. These are like, alternate universe type tellings of a story. So they have a telling of a story where Superman didn't land in Kansas in America. He landed in the Soviet Union and became like an icon of the Soviet Union. So in this story, an interesting angle they do is Lex Luthor is still an American, but now he's sort of justified in being against Superman because it's the Cold War. He's against the Russian avatar, etc. And so what happens is Superman basically gets warned by his robot, like, you got to watch out for this Lex Luthor guy. He's like, like a 15th level intellect who could destroy you with a single sentence uttered. And obviously Superman's thinking, like, what the fuck? What would he possibly say? And the joke is, in this actual comic, spoiler, this will spoil it for you, but none of you were going to fucking read this anyway. It's actually a banger one-off trade. One of the clever twists is this does happen in the episode, Maui. What happens is he writes a message that Superman at one point opens, and when he opens the message, I won't tell you what it says because you'd have to know some like deep thing about Superman lore, but he basically says something that's like a really hurtful idea that once it gets inside Superman's brain does sort of destroy him mentally. My joke here would be, even though you made it sound epic, like he found all the angle, the joke is he just passed a tiny little piece of paper to Nico, and as Nico was about to play, he unrolled it. It just said, "You are at a major right now." Listen, that's only a joke, Nico. You're actually a pretty good player. That's Maui that hates on you. I don't. I just wish you win a major so we could stop talking about it. But anyway.
Am I hating or just stating an objective fact of what's happened in his career at this point?
Yeah. Some would say the two things are the same. That's my experience. I found. Like, I'll notice, I even did this myself recently, boys. I did a statement I said on Twitter, here are the teams Mongols played and beat at the major to make the final. Tell me a run that was weaker from a team that they didn't win. No, but not a single person told me another run that was worse. They just said I'm racist and I must hate them and I'm a piece of shit. And it's like, boys, surely it's right there, the answer. If I'm wrong, just let me know the facts. Just tell me the factual angle. But don't worry, I've got a video on that coming soon, as usual. Anyway, you're right, I'll rewind it all. First of all, I actually do think one aspect that might have helped the rise of the Asian CS like this to become like actual upset merchants who can beat a number of top teams, I think might actually also be CS2. Because I'll tell you the most underrated aspect of Asians Counter-Strike and FPS specifically. If people don't know, because actually it's not very well spotlighted or mentioned and remembered, that in 1.6 there was some excellent like Korean teams, for example, who were in the final of majors and were like fucking around and almost winning them. In fact, famously, We Made Fox did win like an Asian tournament that had like Na'Vi and MTW, all the great 1.6 teams there. So they could be very good. But because in that era, like China and Korea didn't play Counter-Strike specifically, they played games like CS Online and Crossfire and things like that. A lot of people famously used to say that Asian dominance in games is just for MOBA and RTS. They used to think it's just Dota for China, or League of Legends and StarCraft for Korea, obviously. And what they missed was, first of all, Overwatch proved that wasn't right. Because if you don't know Overwatch, Korea had the majority of the best players. In fact, usually the best player in the world was always a Korean player, even when, by the way, you had mixed rosters. So I actually think, to get to a quick point, the most misunderstood thing is it's actually more like what Maui's saying. It's a mixture of not a large enough player base and then being isolated and siloed in your own little community. And so not understanding the meta game of Counter-Strike. Like if you ever watch a podcast where someone like Ash breaks the game down, he's almost never going to break down the crosshair and say you missed a shot or why didn't you double tap. What he's going to break down is like, oh, you don't know that they throw this smoke in this game and you're trying to do the old smokes that get countered. That's what he'll point out. What he'll essentially point out is that a lot of the like edge aspects of being a top pro are just like being super nerdy about the current meta or being like sort of practicing with intention and doing a VOD review with your team and getting what the holes are and stuff. One thing you can never say about the top Asian players is that they had shit mechanics in the game. Like, actually, as I'm kind of pointing out here, I actually think that's one of the strengths of the Asian scene, if anything. I even think you're watching the modern day, ask any team that gets upset now by a Tyler or something, the first thing they'll tell you is like, hey, they got pretty fucking crispy aim, or like, hey, they were shooting our fucking heads off or something. I actually think mechanics is a good thing, and if anything, isn't one of the number one conclusions about CS2 is it fucking rewards being a mechanical AKT side player. Like that sort of player's stock went through the roof. It's why actually Nero has the sort of edgy counter take a lot of people still haven't caught up on, which is, you know, when everyone goes, oh my god, Donk's numbers are that crazy. It's like, yeah, but that's actually where CS2 is different. You're right. In CSGO, if you had these numbers, by the way, it'd be the hands down goat. You wouldn't even be able to argue. But because CSGO was about like more like passive AWPing and angle holding, CS2 actually does reward being like the playmaker and the fucking sick entry rifler as long as you have the right setup. So first of all, I think the game seems like it suits them better. Then secondly, if you want to look at players who have mechanics, bro, there are a bunch on these teams. Like Tyler has the most to me, quite clearly. Assuming we're putting Mongols out the equation as like they're the outlier anyway. To me, I do think Lin Vision is the one where I don't believe it, put it that way. Listen, fair play to them. They got through 2 whole Swiss stages. I don't know how they did that. I had them 0-3 all the time. They even had these games here where if you don't know at this tournament, they fucking beat who was it? The upset of this
Max,
one?
I think.
Yeah, 3D Max as well. The only one I actually think is sick is the Jamyung guy. I'll give it to him though. But by the way, he has fucking nice mechanics. Go watch a POV of him, boys, and you will go, this guy is fucking sick at the game. Tylo's better. That's why even the joke is, even with the standing, if people don't know, at this tournament, they beat Astralis and VP. Those are BO3 series. And then famously at EPL, where they announced themselves, they beat 3D Max in Eternal Fire. By the way, when it was still Eternal Fire, not the new one. Now, the one that became Aurora. So these results already, those aren't even just like decent results. Those are some fucking real teams. Like, those are all teams on paper that can be in the playoffs of a tournament, and they beat them on land. So I do think collectively now, this can't be a pure flash in the pan. They've got something going for them. I also do agree. I think they have leveled up so much in terms of metagame understanding. Back in the day when the Tyloo's of the world played, like Maui's saying, you could pick certain maps. Famously, Cash was one as well. They had no clue how to play like retake strategy on those maps. They would just play straight up and take aim duels in their region and win all the aim duels. But if you notice, one thing I do think, which people eventually figured out from the West, is it's not what you tried to do for the years after that, which is they used to try to sign like, you know, fucking Bondic or something, some old-ass player. No, you don't sign the old-ass player, you sign a coach. That's what you do. You bring Peacemaker or someone out there. And the difference is he then is going to update you on the meta and show you in the VOD like, oh, it's not that you lost the duel here, mate. You had to just position like this, or this guy had to throw utility for you. That's what levels you up. And I think in that area, to tie to the Lin Vision coach, they're way better at that now. Like, isn't that really, by the way, what happened in the West from the Blast Paris Major onwards? The reason why Tier 2 in Europe got way better is they all have coaching staff too. They all do VOD reviews after the game. They, by the way, in the modern day, I'm sure they do all this in Asia too, they also play, if you're in Tier 2, 1 billion online games. You get so much fucking time in the server. Like, the joke is you actually do play more officials than the top teams. It's one of the weird, bizarre, counterintuitive elements we have in the scene right now. So even though, look, it might not help on LAN as much, but it helps the meta understanding. And you have all things like, this is what Ash from Gamer Legion will tell you. There are people in these Tier 2 games, because that's where they're like cooking all the new stuff. They have the new smoke before the pro teams get them in the LANs. Like, so all this stuff can help you. And you come to, and by the way, I'll also throw in as well one last reference to another game, which is the other game to me that always foreshadowed this could happen, is if anyone follows Valorant, The last year and a half of Valorant, the last 2 years, were all about the rise of China and Korea. Like, they went from being, like, similar to the Mongols. They could have, like, they used to have this team called Vision Strikers and then DRX, where it's like, they could fluke, like, a 5th place or something, you know. They could have, like, an amazing run, but they'd get stopped before the end. If people don't know, EDG from China won the World Championship in Valorant, and then now it's, like, a Korean team that's on top. I think T1 or something. So there are, like, unbelievable teams from these regions. And again, this game is quite similar to Counter-Strike, and you watch them, they have unbelievable mechanics, mate. They have, like, the Chinese players, no joke. I remember talking to Sean Gez about this on a Valorant show. He actually thinks that the guy on, like, EDG, I think it's called, like, oh, fuck, I can't remember the name. It's a name that's like a doubled up name. I could try looking it up. He plays for EDG Valorant. Who is the star player? Let's see if this will actually tell me. Yeah, there we go. It's called, that's why I didn't know it. It's ZMJJKK. So I think it's called like Kang or something. Now you can see, to be fair, I have a pretty good memory, but I haven't got that good a memory, boys. This player, put it this way, Sean Gez, when he watched this player, said this guy will be the GOAT of Valorant. Like, his mechanics like actually clear everyone in the game. And again, I know Sean Gez is not as popular a viewing figure as Paladin, but, you know, I think he's quite an interesting guy with some really good takes, you know, so I trust that take. So, yeah, I'm with you. Not only is it on the rise note, this looks like it can actually compound and go somewhere. And I'll add in as well, isn't this kind of cool that in an era when actually we're sort of getting rid of RMRs and slots and stuff like that, isn't it kind of cool that if people like Mongols was the outlier before, but eventually if these other teams can get anywhere close, it's just going to be real proper teams at all the big tournaments. Remember, we're not doing some wacky League of Legends, so many slots thing. Like, if you're just good, you're going to be at the tournaments. You're also going to get, there's another thing, by the way, that will change the game. The reason why on 1.6 that Korean team was able to be as good is because they went to all the events every single month and they would come and boot camp in Europe for like 2 weeks. That's another problem they've had in the Tylus of the world. They would go home to China for 3 months and get into one pro league or something, and the rest of the time they're just playing like the best of the Chinese teams. And famously, any analyst knows this. It's why none of us knew anything about their teams, because if you were Tyloo, we would pull up your HLTV page and you'd have an 80% win rate on every map, and it's like, what are they even good on? Like, in that scenario, you just farm everyone basically. We don't even actually know what you're good at in the game. So the difference is they're playing real CS now and they're actually at the top. No, I'm with you. I think it's a cool angle. It's quite cool, actually.
We'd also pull up their HLTV page and they had the roster of like 15 people because they kept cycling players. So I think stabilizing that has helped a lot. And also on your point in terms of them always being strong aimers, I think that was the thing that stood out even back in like 2015, 2016 when they were playing in some of these, you know, pro leagues or the small team, the bigger events that they would be the lowest seeded team at. They would always play the highest ranked team and then probably the second highest ranked team. So they would get bounced out of these events. They wouldn't actually have a chance to develop properly because they're losing, 16-4 to the Fanatics of the world back then. But on top of that, they still had that raw aim that everybody saw, and you saw there was potential. It was just, it's taken so long to realize it. But I think now they're actually getting there. And as another point that ties into them actually attending LANs often, they do have these LANs in Asia that they're able to go to now. And there's more of these TOs creating these small LANs where it's not just providing experience to some of these younger players on LAN, it's giving them VRS points, which is helping them get to these bigger events. And that being a stable option to actually get points and get invited to these events is going to change a lot of that, because you're going to have these other, like, for example, now if you have Tyloo in the top 15 or top 20, they're going to get a direct invite to the event. And then the next team in Asia is going to get into these Asia invite slots. And you're just going to have more teams who get these opportunities. You're going to have them go to these smaller Asia lands because, the Tyloos or the Mongols are all getting invited to the bigger events and they're not going to go to these Asia lands. So it's just going to compound and it's going to improve the whole region over time as well.
By the way, to echo what you're saying about like 10 years ago with the original Tyloo as well, that's why the player who now sadly is just referenced because he's a meme, because his name is somebody, so it makes every title like a fucking joke, like who's on first type. Hey, what do you mean somebody? Who is it? If people don't know though, that player actually was a banger in the server too. All he would do for real was like some CS2 shit. He would just run in on T side and just start popping heads. That was their whole play style. It was actually like, listen, it didn't work sadly in a best of 3 because eventually like teams just adapt to that. But I'll tell you what, you put them in the right BO1 and they did upset people. They definitely made shit hard. I'll give you that. Right, okay.
Replaced by Trash now, of course.
There you go. By the way, that is another good. I know, somebody replaced by Trash. Give me a break. I know.
Did you see that he's the lowest rated player at the Fisher Playground event?
By the way, I actually,
so fitting.
I'll just do the usual thing where I blow my own horn on this one. No, that type of episode, Livestreamfails. Oh, what's this down here? Anyway, no, but basically, I actually thought I had the best singer on Twitter the other day, because did you see that hilarious thing? We all saw it, where in PUBG, qualifying to the PUBG World Cup, was Team Aryan with a player quite literally called Hitler. Right? Now, look, I will say, that's actually, this might sound weird, but this is a true detail. You can look it up. That might even be, if you don't know, because there is actually a very weird subculture within India that actually doesn't think Hitler's evil or something. Like, I know this sounds bad, but you can Google it, you can look it up, because, like, for example, there's a type of person there who incorporates it into their religion and says something like that they think Hitler was like an avatar of, I don't even know which one it is, like Krishna or Vishnu, I don't know which one it is, but they see him as like an avenging archetypal figure or something weird. And also, I will just say, when you're from a radically different part of the world, you often don't know what the cultural norms are. Like, I've told this story before. In Korean StarCraft, think how buttoned up Koreans are. When they would have, I think this was like 2010, by the way, when they would have these opening ceremonies where you could do silly things like come up and dressed up in costume, and what you do is you just sort of like play for the cameras, because what you do in these ceremonies is you would pick the people in your group. It's what we did in Flashpoint, Maui. That's actually where we got this idea from. There was a famous player whose alias, he was called Fantasy. He was a Terran player for T1, a massive org, by the way, and his nickname in the game was the Terrorist, because what he would do in the game was like he would like terrorize you with, like, you drop like vultures on Terra's side and like harass you, right? Maui, this is how different cultural norms are. He came to one of these things, these ceremonies, just dressed as Osama bin Laden. Again, my point is, boys, things are different in other parts of the world. They have a different understanding of cultural sensitivity. They think things are jokes, we don't. But anyway, the follow-up to this joke of Team Aryan qualifying with player, checks notes, Hitler, anyway, Indian guy, by the way, the funniest part was, online, obviously they made him change his alias, didn't they? So the news said he had to change his name to Henry. So fair play to Henry G. Henry G just did a quote retweet, like, thanks, mate. But then I thought I had the best come-up back of all. I just said, Henry, you have a chance to do something really bold right now. Because all I'm saying is, it's available. Listen, the old switcheroo, you can do that. You can do that. Maybe the wrong part of that. Maybe the wrong member of that partnership, to be fair, though, Anyway, Maui, what is your good point?
Mine is that we finally have Valve addressing what was the probably worst issue about CT side, is that the economy just sucks, and that you always felt like you were fighting up against an insurmountable obstacle, which is that the T sides are going to snowball off of practically anything, even getting bomb plans, and that you were taking full saves. I rarely do you see in a tier 1 game of Counter-Strike a T side taking a full save, other than there's some of the teams now where if they lose the pistol and get practically no kills, they'll take a full save so they can have AKs and slight nades on the second round. But in reality, after that, you're almost never getting a 5 Glock round. It is so rare to see that in tier 1 CS. And now for the CT side, we probably don't have to see all too many 5 USP rounds. That was one of the aspects where it's just like the CTs just couldn't fight back. And even when the Ts had a low likelihood on their half buy rounds or light buy rounds, they'd still usually throw in a Tech 9, a flash, something like that. Now you can do that, okay? I made a video myself about going over the economic changes, and I wanted to correct one thing in it, because Valve, I didn't even see an update note for this or any sort of patch, but on day 1 of the patch, the $50 kill reward bonus. So actually, I haven't even explained it yet. If people haven't been reading the patch notes, if they only listen to the podcast, for whatever reason, Valve made it such that every kill that a CT gets, you will get $50 banked for all of your team in the next round. So effectively, every single kill that you get, normally you'd get the $300 kill reward for an M4 kill. Now it's actually, in theory, $550. It's just that the final $250 additional is given to everybody on your team equally. It's not only lost rounds, it's both won rounds and lost rounds. But and to talk about the patch that I'm going to correct myself on is that Valve slyly let out a patch that was usually loss bonuses, win bonuses would be handed out as soon as the bomb explodes or as soon as the round timer ends. But everybody knows there's that little 3-second window where the bomb blows up and then people are still fighting into the next round. Those 3 seconds, Valve actually didn't count those 3 seconds to give you that additional $50 bonus. If you got like 3 kills because you were saving and they ran into you, you would actually not get that extra 150 spread across all of your players. You now do. So right. Valve actually made it so that you get the bonus as soon as the normal loss bonus or win bonus, as soon as the bomb is defused, explodes, or the round timer ends, or the final elimination happens. But now they count that final 3 seconds, and the additional 50 to 250 for every other player is given as soon as freeze time starts in the upcoming round. Just giving clarification on that fact. So this is really good. I've played with it a handful of times. I've played a handful of a couple ESEA matches already on this patch, a handful of pugs too, and this is noticeable. I feel like some people at first were like, "Is $50 enough?" Playing with it, I can tell you with certainty it is enough. Because second round now, if you win with full elimination on pistol round, like the one really big problem round for CTs in the last patch was you win the pistol round, everybody on your team gets 3250 along with the kill rewards for the pistol kills that they got. Now it's actually 3500 for everybody else plus the pistol kills. Frequently now, instead of having 3 MP9s with full nades, full utility, full armor, you're actually getting maybe 4 people buying M4s, armor, and even a smoke or a flash. So that's a big difference that makes anti-ecos on that second round much better for the CTs. And it just feels like now things are stabilizing. The game is shifting back over to the CT side a little bit more. This economy change to me is one of the best updates that Valve has done in some time. And there was discussion before about should you raise the floor, make it so that there's no 1900 loss bonus, or I mean, make it so it immediately goes to a 1900 loss bonus instead of all the way down to 1400. I actually think this is better. I think this is actually a more intuitive way to go about it that is more reward oriented. It's more about what you're accomplishing in the server as opposed to just handing out an extra 500 to every single CT, even in a loss. So I think this is a great change. One of the best changes that Valve has made for the esport in a very long time.
I haven't played with the patch yet, but I mean, I agree just by looking at it on paper even, because as you said, removing the 1400 loss bonus would actually change the economy a little bit too much, I think, because you're giving the CTs such a favored bonus at the start, whereas this, as you said, it rewards the kill bonus, but at the same time it has a longer lasting impact throughout the entire half. It's not just if you get reset, you're actually getting something out of this constantly. So as you're getting kills, you're continuously racking up a little bit extra money. And yeah, $50 doesn't sound like much, but throughout the course of a half that actually adds up really quickly. And I think like if you're getting, let's say 4 kills or 3 kills even, that's probably around $7,000 over the course of the half across all the players. And that makes a really big difference. That's an extra, couple of smokes per round. That's extra couple of, like maybe an extra op over the course of the half. And in terms of the overall difference that makes in an entire CT side, it's improving a lot of the options that CTs can take, because we've had this period where, a lot of people are buying armor, MP9, full nades. Whereas now you can also have the extra nades with the rifle, as you were saying, but also when you are set down to pistols, you have the option for a little more plays, because let's say that you lose and you're reset, you have 1900 across the board, right? Now, let's say you've gotten 3 kills in the previous round. That's an extra 150 per player. That's an extra flash that you can now make like an information play with, even with your pistols. You can get a P250 on like 3 people. You can get a couple of flashes and actually make a play, and you're not having players the next round then having to buy armor MP9 again because they spent money on a couple of util sets or a couple of pistols. Overall, it just improves the options for CTs. And as we've seen this economy the game become a little bit more skewed towards Ts, this is the best overall approach, I think, to actually counter that and give CTs more options, stabilize the economy overall. And as you go towards like these big tournaments that are going to be coming up that actually use this patch, I think people are going to notice it more and more. They're going to see that actually $50 over the course of a half per kill makes a much larger difference than they would have thought, because pro teams know how to utilize this as well. Like they know how to balance their economy and actually use this across the course of an entire half.
Yeah, before Thorin gets in on it, I crunched the numbers to just see what various teams would likely benefit in terms of just pure numbers. Like I went through the CT side, KPR, kills per round of Vitality and 3D Max. I just kind of picked them because I wanted to see kind of like a middle tier team and then the best team. Vitality with their KPRs from this last season, the last 6 months, they per player would be making on average $2,070 more per half per player. So you're getting
almost,
you're getting like four or five sevens out, and you could throw in a smoke in there too. You know, like you could throw in some nades. You could change it up in different ways. You could get one more MP9 and a half armor throughout the half. You could get, but I think it's just giving the CT something more to work with in those kind of like buys that would have just been full saves in the past. Yes. The extra flash, the extra smoke, the extra P250 or 5.7, that's where it's going to tip the scales a little bit more in their favor, because that too might just get you 1 or 2 more kills. It might raise the CT KPRs on top of the fact that they're getting more money on. So Vitality, I even think in the upcoming season, you're going to see an even higher CT side kills per round from everybody from Vitality, because they'll have that extra piece of utility here or there. So yeah, just crunching the numbers for you.
No, by the way, the good thing about that, what I like about this change is, in theory, it's a change that actually should make the good teams better and reduce variance that made like randy results happen. Because first of all, as you're saying, if you actually look, even though we consider CS2's T-sided, that's why teams like Vitality and Mouse are insane. Their CT sides are bonkers. They can just put up a brick wall. You can't get in. By the way, those teams are just going to get rewarded even more. And I'm totally with you, because I've always said the biggest problem in the last few patches of CSGO and CS2, you've nailed it. You can see it the best at the beginning of the game. It's not like the weird other things of like the times when you're just missing a couple of pieces of util or one guy has the farmer. No, it was at the beginning. It's like Maui said, the dumbest part about the game was you won the CT pistol, right? That's it. You've done your job. But then if either the other team has like Donk or Zimu and gives him like a hero AK, which is 2700, and then he has armor as well, and then you essentially, your team has all FAMASs and SMGs. So now even though you won the pistol, you're fighting the best player in the world and he has a better gun than you. I've always thought like, Valve, what is that, bro? Like, remember, you want to build incentives into the game that when you do the right thing, you get rewarded for it, not put in a bad scenario. And by the way, forget the Super Soldier thing. If they just did a force buy and somehow made it work, like got in the site, planted, won the 2v2 or whatever, they would completely cripple your economy for like half the rest of the half. Like, it would get crazy how bad. And then I always said the worst thing about the game, the second you're behind in CSGO and early CS2, is now it's not even win the round. You have to win the round and keep people alive. That's really hard. Like, that's not like just to win a round with 5 people. In theory, you're using those 5 people to get in the site, to retake, to stop with that. No, now you have to keep more than 2 people alive. Otherwise, every time you're like 1 gun behind on the economy. And remember, AK was always better and cheaper than an M4. Then on top of that, as CTs, you need the kit. By the way, util's probably the most misunderstood part, Maui. Like when you say 2700 there or whatever, the best part about that is that might be over a whole half, like 3-4 extra smokes that just win you the round. That's like a retake right there. That's a smoke wall that keeps them out the site for 5 seconds. People miss as fans because they're just playing Faceit games on Mirage where we're all playing Boggy. They miss that, like, sometimes one piece of utility really does win you the round in pro player, especially on certain maps that you're weaker on, or you want to cover for a player or fake something else. So the actual impact here isn't minor. I agree with you. It's actually a really good point to make. Like, first of all, I love the way they've done it. Like, it's even kind of a cool angle that, like, notice how another thing they've been able to do in doing this is you can't stop other CTs from getting from this. It's not like it's only the guy that kills you who gets it. Their whole team gets it. Mate, that's also going to mean, by the way, concepts like just avoid Zimu. He gets the money anyway, mate. As long as they kill you and win the round, everyone's sharing the wealth. Remember, the one thing you can't do in CS is drop the money. You can only drop the guns. So I actually think it's a banger change. It looks like actually universally, I can't really see a downside to it. I'm even thinking like you say, Maui, the worst round in professional Counter-Strike is actually not even the 5 Glocks, because in theory, in the modern day, people don't spam the Glock. They tap on the head, and 5 people tapping on the head of the B Mirage holder on CT side do kill him eventually, or get in the site, or have a chance at getting a bomb plant. The worst round in CS is 5 USPs playing at long range. Like on Dust, it's garbage. Whereas if you can even just have 1 SMG, a flash, and a couple of 5.7s, bro, that round becomes like 3 times more winnable or something. In fact, you see it in play. The teams that would gamble on those force buys, they could change the whole game round. No, I actually like this change. I think across the board, it's really good. I also think 2 things it does that are fantastic is I actually think the one aspect of CS2 that wasn't abused enough by teams is on T side. I think teams and coaches should have persuaded players to hunt for kills at the end of the round way more. I actually thought they would sometimes save, like when they had good bank, and I would always be like, bro, one gun you take from the CT ruins his half, right? This actually also encourages CTs not just saving in a corner. Like, actually getting those exits is big now. It means even if you're not... like, by the way, immediately Inferno's going to be way more playable, because even if you don't actually go for the retake, you're going to stick around to get the exit kills on B. You're not just going to instantly fuck off to the house and apartments and do the, like, hide-and-seek Home Alone shit that everyone does. That part is also asked to watch. Like, it's fun. The worst
conversely,
feeling... Yeah, go on.
Conversely, it also adds more stakes to the CTs, or so the T's going for the hunt in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
So it actually makes the post round after the bomb's planted, even if the CTs are saving, it just adds so much more stakes to the whole scenario that it makes that end of the round way more interesting to watch than, you know, if CTs are just going to hold an angle. Even if you think like the T's are going to exit towards the CTs and they might get kills, it just brings the stakes of that situation up even more, because, you know, an extra $100 might get this player. Yeah, you might be able to buy that hero AK, for example, hero M4 with an extra $100. So it does raise the stakes of those post-round scenarios a little bit more.
No, like I say, it makes the scenario where the T's just take the B site on Inferno and then be immediately save. Not just a 30-minute fucking boring thing for like... That's ass. But also my joke here that Maui can't make, but I don't work the event, so I can, would be. Now there's even more tension in that moment at the end of the round we never get to see while they cut to the crowd's face, and then the guy does lose his gun. Shout out to all the TOs out there who just can't stop doing that, and all the producers who must see the guy in the crowd going like, ha, look at this sign. Look at this sign. I'm opening a case. I'm opening cases. Anyway, let's move on.
Go on. One last really quick thing is that it's kind of in contrast or to counter the whole any other way of changing it.
By the way, you've also framed your video quite well. You said like CT side is saved, because I've been telling you, look, I already think the guns in the game now advantage T side too much, but CS2 was just a T-sided game, mate. It didn't matter. The jokers were big and Overpass back. That would have been T-sided too, mate. This actually might have made the game CT-sided again.
Yeah. I am actually very glad they came up with this really pretty intuitive way to try to bolster the CT economy, because the loss bonus buff by just making it one stage higher is it's kind of blue shelly to me.
Yes.
It's just a little bit too much, just giving them something for doing nothing.
Yeah.
And I'd rather it always be a reward that's earned as opposed to a reward that's just gifted out to try to rubber band the game. I think rubber band mechanics in almost every game are pretty lame. I feel like they really almost don't belong in most competitive esports, but for Counter-Strike, this is something where, like, if they get that extra 250 at the end of the round because they got all the kills on the T's as they were trying to exit the bomb site, then that's completely earned. That's completely earned. So I really fuck with the change.
One other quick thing I want to add is that the op kill reward is $100. So now you're adding a lot more economy benefit to the opper himself, because he's not getting the kill reward bonus from the rifle, which is $300. And often the oppers sometimes even play with pistols on a second round if they want to save for an opper, if they're trying to buff up the economy early. So now you have the opper getting not only their regular kill reward with $100, they're also getting that extra 50 for each player that his teammates kill. So it's adding a lot more economy bonus to just that role as well, which will make a big difference in the end.
I'm actually just going to go, not even with the super deep cut for my good point. I'm actually just going to be a fan of CS here, because I'm going to say a good thing in CS is IEM Cologne's coming up. I've always told people the reason why I've intentionally made that distinction, that I think, look, it's now going to be Krakow, not Katowice, but Katowice and Cologne, I do think should be considered like a hair below a major. Look, I get that because it's Valve and we call it the major. That has to be the World Championship. Even if the format's worse, but it just is. Like, it'd be the same in League. Like, in League, by the way, I think the format of MSI is way better than Worlds, but it isn't called the World Championship, is it? And if you ask the player, he'd rather be the World Champion than the mid-season Invitational Champion. It's just the name value and the prestige. That's how it works. But with that said, I do think that these tournaments are so excellent, Cologne and Katowice, now Krakow, that they do deserve almost to be separated from other tournaments. So to me, it's not just that like a good tournament's coming up. The thing I think is cool about Cologne, especially, because obviously they have stayed in the Lanxess, is, bro, that is actually one of the coolest things the ESL did. You know, in Katowice, they made it on the stairs. You'd walk up and it'd be each champion. I don't think people know how dope that is. That's like some of a movie. What you want with that, by the way, is the guy who's making his first final but hasn't won yet to see that as he walks up on the stage and think like, fuck Virtus Pro, Fnatic. Like, that's dope. That's actually exactly what we all want from sports and competition, to like raise the stakes and make it some epic shonen anime fucking shit. Well, it's along the same lines. Listen, mate, I've seen majors where sometimes the crowd was just all right, or they played for one person. Bro, the Cologne crowd is the best in the history of Counter-Strike. It always is rocking. And I can tell you right now, aside from a major, that is the most intimidating stage to step on, is the Cologne one. People say when you make the playoffs there, it's just a different game. And until you've been there, by the way, you don't know what it's like. It's why famously, even though fans hate it because they've never been in this scenario, it's why everyone who works in the industry does hype that, like, it's FaZe-clad if they get to the playoffs, because those are exactly the sort of people who would always feast when that happened. If they saw that team that looked a bit nervous, suddenly those players would be making moves they'd only making a face-it pog, They'd be doing all sorts of crazy shit, and the crowd would be going hype. Obviously, famously, Carrigan just is like fucking Maximus or something. He's like, I'm not entertained. Like, every fucking game, he's just got them all eating out the palm of his hand. And so, I genuinely, Cologne might actually be my favourite tournament every year in Counter-Strike. I get that the one downside, like kind of Eat says, they do now schedule them like quite soon after the player break, so you get the odd wacky result or roster that hasn't like finalised. But all I'll say as well is, mate, how many times has the fucking Cologne final also delivered and just been like the game of the year or like fucking game of the century or game of like CSGO or CS? So many times. And remember, this thing used to be a major way back, even when it had a worse format. It doesn't even need to be a major now. It's actually, the joke is, because of the rules around format around majors, I think it actually makes this tournament better that it doesn't have any Valve involvement, and ESL just made it really dope. Like, I don't really, in the modern day, especially with all the planes, everything's BO3 as well. I don't know what is there not to like about Cologne. Like, at this point in time, if you're a fan of CS, you're just a fan of IEM Cologne, right?
I mean, first of all, I can't believe you didn't mention Gambit's online win when you were talking about the staircase.
Okay. True. I held that back. It's the way, that's the sort of thing, though, that even I know it's not a big deal. But, it's like, if you try to be precise about history, it triggers me. It got to me. I'm the only person who cared, but it got to me. It got to me. But they never climbed those stairs, boys. They never climbed them. So, all good. It's all good.
I think the last point you made there was exactly what I was thinking, is that I can't remember the last time I watched a Cologne that didn't deliver. The grand final has almost always delivered in recent memory. The tournament format is exceptional. I think especially once they got rid of the BO1 openers and the play-in, it just completely elevated the tournament. There's no question when you look at the results of this event that a team fluked to win. It's an arena that always delivers. It's an event I've never been to but want to go to at some point. But in terms of the narrative set up around Cologne, it's always, especially at this point that it's the first tournament after the summer break, it always sets up the narrative for the rest of the season up until the major now, that this team won Cologne, who's going to actually take the major. And it's always this higher stake event that helps build that whole conversation. Because let's say Vitality doesn't win Cologne now, right? What does that mean for the rest of the season? Yeah. That's going to be the way it's contextualized every event for the next 4 or 5 months, right? And you have these teams who, a lot of them do say that Cologne, they prepare for or treat at the same level of the major. And it makes sense, because at this point, the event's been going on so long and it has so much history that for a lot of players, it means so much more to win Cologne. Like, if you take Device, for example, I'm sure he would want to win Cologne.
Oh, for sure.
He's won a bunch of majors. So there's players who this means more to sometimes, and it sounds crazy to say, than a major, but it's been going so long that there's so much history rooted in it. I think it's a tournament that, and like, if any fan wants to get into CS and they look at Cologne, they can go through the years of history and see just how much the game has changed by looking at this one tournament and seeing how teams have evolved and how conversations have changed. It's one of the few tournaments we've had that have lasted this entire time, and I think that adds a lot of value to the viewers, but also to the narrative and the way that we can shape conversation around events as a whole.
The historical gravitas of Cologne is pretty hard to match up with. In fact, at this point, I think it's impossible to match up with anything, given that we know that Katowice is it's becoming Krakow for the upcoming season. So ESL holding on to this one is there. It's got to be I know that you can rate them both in the same tier, and I generally do at my end of the year player lists and everything. If you achieve something at Katowice, I consider it to be achieving something at the same level of Cologne. But Thorin is right that Cologne is. I mean, whatever. Cologne's better than Kato was. It was a bigger arena. It had, in my eyes, a better audience most of the time.
It's a really modern arena too. It's like it is the sort that you'd go and see like. Fucking, it's why I'm struggling to pick Taylor Swift out my brain or something there, but a modern music act that all the kids watch. You know, for real, like you can fit like 18,000 people in it or something, mate. It's pretty banging, yeah.
I think for the capacity of the esports event, because they section off like a quarter of it or whatever, I think it becomes 15,000 roughly. That's what ESL said in the past. Is that it was like
still pretty fucking good though, mate. Yeah,
I mean it's huge. It's massive. I mean, there's very few tournaments we get where it's 5 digits. We still consider events that are 3,000 and above to be arenas most of the time.
You can make that look good.
But 15,000, and it sells out every time. It sells out so fast every single time. Obviously, as you make this point, I don't know if people are really tuned into Reddit. I had something on the front page where I said the way that. Unfortunately, what it seems like with ESL and where it's going, so I'll add some clarification to this because it is the third highest link right now when I'm talking right now, is that ESL is sort of they're kind of pushing down Cologne and Kato in their priorities to make EWC their premier event of the season. It's going to be really hard, even if they do invest less financial resources into Cologne, to make it ever feel unimportant. Okay, even no matter what
good luck recreating that atmosphere in fucking Riyadh, mate. Like you've never gotten close so far. I'm with you. Like I get why they're doing it. The ownership obviously has more of an interest in doing that than the history of CS and stuff. But good luck to them. I don't know how they think they're going to do it, mate.
Yeah. So I'm just really glad that it's still around, and it looks like it's still going to be moving forward. I mean, technically, ESL, I don't think they even announced Cologne for next year.
Oh, okay.
There's been leaks and rumors about why that is, because, well, I mean, I can't leak too many things in one day.
It's rumored to be the first major of next year.
Right, there you go.
Yes.
Right,
so I can't leak these things. Okay. But other people have said these things already, but I can't keep like just giving. I'm not a leaker. I'm not supposed to be a leaker.
Just because the joke's right there. You're right, Maui. They've applied to have IEM Cologne become a major. They are trying to make it worse than the other. Whatever, you get the point. Of course.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, it's going to have BO1s again.
Yeah.
They are making it worse.
They've ruined it. Yeah, they made it worse.
No. I mean, all in all, obviously, I don't get employed by ESL anymore, but the two events.
That's why you're leaking all their shit, is it? Is that why this is your reprisal? It's like, I'm going to leak all your shit, Ruby style, okay?
Well, my relationship with them isn't horrible. I mean, they let me co-stream at the bare minimum, but I mean, the thing is that the two events that I really did miss in their calendar once I figured out that I wasn't going to be working with them anymore were Dallas, because I have an American bias, obviously.
Yeah.
People know me there. People are so friendly to me there. But also on top of that, Cologne. Cologne was easily my second favorite, tied with. I know that's weird to say that Dallas can be my favorite along with Cologne. It's just the atmosphere of both was incredible. Okay, the IEM random city that they're rotating in and out to me was a lot less interesting. The ESL Pro Leagues were a lot less interesting, but Cologne. I remember being there for the Navi Phase Grand Finals Map 5 where Twist made that, I don't even know what people call it, the maple syrup drop play that he did or whatever. Like that
the Canada play?
Yeah, the Canada play. Yeah. Like, I don't know. I feel like that's a lot less imaginative than maple syrup, but that moment in that arena, I don't know if I have ever heard a louder.
That may as well have been a major, right? It felt like it. That could have been Cold Zero doing the jumping no scopes as well. That was fucking banging, mate. Yeah.
If that was in a major, that's getting a graffiti.
For sure, yeah.
Just flat out. It's just, it would have been the way that stadium, the roof popped off, okay? Like, they had to reassemble the Lanxess after that day. That was something I'll never forget, and Cologne still is, it's my favorite event that I don't work every year.
By the way, that's even a detail to just bounce off what you're saying there, Maui. That's the one area that I think otherwise brilliant esports commentators still haven't leveled up. Is this, in basketball, my favourite commentator is Kevin Harlan. If anyone knows this guy, he is the best hypecaster ever, because his hype style, by the way, is he just like sort of tells you to get hyped. Like what he'd do is, instead of being like, what an amazing dunk, he'd be like, Kobe Bryant just sucked the gravity out of the target. Like that's the one angle we haven't got. People just hype the players. Yeah. What I need you to tell me is like he just silenced the Cologne crowd or the Katowice crowd is shocked. If you do that, because by the way, those are people always forget. Like that call, the crowd mics are key as well. If you have the crowd mics tuned in, you can't have them too loud that's annoying and you can hear what they're saying. But you somehow need it, like in sports, where you just hear the raw in response to the moment. No, I agree. But that's also another thing. Cologne's always been mega at. And if you look at any great final, it feels like a major, mate. It feels like you're at like the fucking World Championship final. It's dope. No, I'm with you. Now, speaking of hearing wonderful, incredibly hype things, great segue, how about Turtle Beach? They make things that you can hear with, like this. This is the Stealth 700 by Turtle Beach, just like ESL stealthily trying to undermine their own incredibly great historic tournaments, apparently, just to big up Check's Notes, a tournament in the desert somewhere. Okay, your life, I guess, not mine. By the way, could have even made some sort. You haven't even thought of this ESL. Make some reference to Just 2 or something, you fucking idiot. Why actually make it sound like you care about the game, not just shilling for a big fucking bag of gold? Anyway, speaking of shilling for a big bag of gold, to definitely care about the game, I like Turtle Beach, like this stealth. Lovely. Now it's getting sexual on Snake and Banter. You all thought before I was a pervert. If I was going to goon, which I don't, honest, then I would goon listening with it. Again, I don't think this is in the copy, but you know what? They do say you're allowed to freestyle, though. They do like it when you get creative. So, you know what? If I was going to goon and I needed a great headset to goon with, I'd use the Stealth 700s from Turtle Beach. And one of the reasons why I would do that is because it has its beautiful cross-play, could make some sort of joke about a threesome there or some sort of orgy or whatever. Anyway, you get the point. They have the cross-play feature where you can plug into 2 different devices at once. Again, you write the jokes right themselves. And when you plug in, you can press a button. You press the right button, tease that, just sensually touch it. Robbing that more. Do A, B, C. Anyway, you get the point. You do that, and then you can switch between things. So you could be like, listen to this podcast, but then you could switch over and listen to some music, couldn't you, on a speaker? You could be playing on your Xbox. You could take a call that's incoming, because obviously, I don't know if any of you kids actually take calls. Doesn't everyone use like Skype and Discord now? But anyway, you could do that. If you still talk to your parents, you could take a call from your parents and go, like, I'm playing fucking Xbox right now. And then they go, oh wait, actually, with the Stealth 700s, I can do both. Because obviously, as I've shown on this show, you can do 2 things at once. That's I should have actually written this down. I could have made a way better crafted, had to do this, couldn't I? But then again, to be fair, they didn't say in the copy, please don't try and make the whole thing about gooning. But you know what? Listen, you take your chances, that's what you get. Depends what episode you get booked in on. So anyway, that is one angle about this. Shout out, obviously, to Turtle Beach. They've done a great job. And if you don't know, they're also, by the way, they have like 1 billion hours of battery life. Like, what do they say the actual length is? I think it's like 90 hours or something insane. Let me see what it was. Is it 90? 80 hours of battery life off a single charge. And they have the quick charge feature where you only need to do it for like way lower than the amount of time than normal, and it gets loads of extra time. So it's actually totally excellent in that sense too. And finally, they don't just make headsets, believe it or not. They make everything. They make mice, keyboards, flight sticks, controllers, everything you can imagine. And crucially, obviously, they are going to give people who listen to this show a special savings. So the savings is, if you head to, it's on the screen, turtlebeach.com and use the code CSGO, easy enough to remember, you will get 10% off your entire order, not just headsets, anything on the website. That's 10% off your order at turtlebeach.com with promo code CSGO. After you purchase, they might ask, where did you hear about us? Just say Last Free Nation or Snake and Banter. Don't mention whatever else I was talking about. Just say Snake and Banter. It's a great show. I enjoy it for the Counter-Strike analysis. And then at that point, and if you don't, I'll send my goons around, whatever. Please support our show and tell us you sent us. Anyway, thanks to Turtle Beach, and hopefully they keep sponsoring the show. Anyway, now let's talk about the bad things in esports. So, Nohte, what's bad at the moment? What don't you like?
So I want to talk about Valve's enforcement of their tournament operation guidelines. I think if anyone saw, Messioso put out a lot of tweets about this, regularly adding Counter-Strike because they've they're very strange with the way that they're allowing exceptions or allowing TOs to change the way that they're running tournaments on short notice. So, for example, Starladder changed their regional qualifiers and LAN group stage to an EU online qualifier, and Thunderpick also removed 8 to 10 global invites for their event and change it to 12 European regional invites. And a lot of this is happening on such short notice that teams have already made decisions to participate in certain events. So, for example, some teams chose to skip the EPL qualifier because they had to prioritize other events. And those decisions are made usually months in advance. And then these TOs are swapping these kind of events and their guidelines on such short notice that no teams can actually adapt to what these changes are. And it's also, one thing that Siosu pointed out was that it's taking away opportunities, for example, for North American teams to play at events when a global invite is swapped for a European regional invite. And then on top of that, you also are removing the opportunity for LAN events to be played by teams lower in the ranking. So when you're changing all of this and you have Valve set out these enforcement guidelines so early on, and you have other TOs who are abiding by it, but you're just letting some of them slip and letting them change whatever they want without actually clearing it or without notifying teams in advance, it creates such a issue overall, because now you're creating a situation where the TOs who are abiding by it can also go like, oh, like what can we get away with? What can we change? And you're creating a scenario where all of these teams don't really know what they can play because they're having the rug pulled from them at the last minute when they've already made these decisions to compete. So I think overall it's creating a relatively large issue that I think Valve needs to take a much closer look at and be more hands-on with, because if they're going to create these guidelines that everyone has to follow, they also need to enforce it and make sure that it's actually held to that standard for everybody across the board, and not just take a hands-off approach or let teams or let event organizers change it. And even if they grant the exception, you're granting some of these exceptions when other teams have already made decisions. So it really throws a lot of this into a lurch, and I think that's something that definitely has to be changed.
There's certain aspects where I really dislike what's been happening here, and like you said, Messios has pointed out numerous issues here. I read through actually a bunch of them yesterday, and first of all, I'll say, to give the bare minimum credit to some TOs, is that sometimes they change locations or the aspects of the tournament for costs. Like, I mean, PGL was going to have the Buenos Aires event, but then they made it a studio event in Bucharest. So, but they kept it a LAN. That's the most important aspect of this. They kept it a LAN because the Buenos Aires stuff. I mean, I heard some varying reasons as to why, but it just seemed like the stadium wasn't up to the quality of what they thought it was going to be. And once they actually went there and started just checking things out on diagnostics and just set up, they just realized this is not going to work out. But
and Blast also moved Monterrey last season to their studio.
Yes. Yeah. True. And as someone that gets employed by Blast, they were. I mean, I just say that every single time now on the show as a bit, but no, I mean, they swapped.
Well, as we learn, Nohte take point, you are a Blast employee.
Yeah, well, apparently. Well,
that's your other title.
As someone who gets invited to everything they do, what else? But I will say this: what's happened recently from the swap from global invites to regional invites, that's where this gets a little bit shady and weird for me, because this just seems like you're trying to skirt around the rules to maximize viewership once you see who is actually supposed to get invited to your tournament, or you're trying to minimize costs for who's going to actually be flown out to your tournament and where you have to fly them out from. I don't like any of that, because if you outline a tournament and who's supposed to be invited to it, to just change it at the last possible second before the invites actually have to be sent to maximize what you think for your tournament is going to be, in air quotes, best. The taking away of opportunities and especially pushing them more to Europe, which is already getting the best end of this stick because of all of the other events that are already being run here and the quality of practice. And there's just a billion reasons why being in Europe is the best right now for being a player or a team in CS. That's where I find it to be pretty frustrating. I don't really, there's so many different aspects to what was said and what you said in Messioso that I mean, there's a lot of bad to go around here.
First of all, just as a joke, I'll let you go there, but I'll say it now. The obvious reason they had to change the event from Buenos Aires is we're all part of a massive conspiracy to stop Bestia ever attending events. Like, I know you guys probably think something naive, like the US government and their immigration policies are above and beyond sort of the pay grade of most. No, it's not true. Is it because we as Argentinians? You know what? It is. It's all just because of that. Basically, because Maradona cheated and punched that ball into the goal in 1986 or something, because of that, I'm actually secretly biased against Argentina. And me and all the others in the community are secretly keeping you all down by not letting you attend events, by making you apply for the wrong visa. We actually incepted that into your mind that was the right visa. Turned out the whole time you actually needed the P1 visa. Who knew? Who knew all along? It was me all along, Austin. Anyway, no. The more serious point would be, first of all, bro, can you just give Messi also the fucking community liaison job already? Because one, he is the only person who already is doing it for free. Two, he now just has to publicly tell you why it is totally wrong what you have done and said. You know, he could just do that inside an office or via an email and you wouldn't get any of this criticism. In fact, you would get to be, checks notes, right about some of this shit. And then thirdly, like, there are so few people who even read the fucking rules and changes on these things. Like, the joke is what Maui did with the patch notes in the game. Like, Messi also does that when they change rule things and in GitHub, but no one else has. The difference is we do that in the game because we want to play the game. No one cares about this stuff, but what happens is people wait until this happens, until like a tournament format gets changed. It's like, but wait, I already turned down another invite. It's like, well, it's too late now, mate. What you wanted to do with a lot of those changes ideally is the second they get announced, immediately go public, like, hey, this can't continue. What about this upcoming event here? And by the way, I think Messi also does an amazing job of that. I just feel bad for him because it feels like at the moment he's just some like fucking preacher in the wilderness, like preaching the good gospel, and we don't even know if anyone's listening. There's just like, you know, us fucking peasants and lepers are listening, but we don't know if up in the high castle of Valve they actually listen or care about what he's fucking saying. Because one thing he's pointed out consistently, which actually ties into what you're talking about, Note, because the worst thing here is some of it's cynical. Some of it looks like, we didn't get as many teams as we've offered them, like 1 million, so fuck, like cut down the costs. In fact, remove a whole region, we don't give a fuck about. Some of it seems cynical like that, but beyond even that, it's just unprofessional. Like, remember, when Valve put this system into place, they've even done things, if people don't know, where they violated their own rules. Like, you were supposed to say, for example, where a tournament takes place that's a major, like years out. They've already let people not do that if people don't know. One of the maddest ones ever that I noticed Messi also brings up, because this ties into like how weirdly Valve enforced their own rules, is they said you had to declare the region a tournament is in within a certain amount of time so that people have time to apply for the visa. Well, if you don't know, they've literally said region Europe. There is no fucking Europe visa. There is a European Union visa, and that is very different from if the event is in, like, I don't know, fucking Malta or Serbia or something. Like, there's certain places that won't apply to. Probably fucking UK. So, like, already, as you're saying,
and for a lot of teams, they're counting Schengen days as well.
Oh, yes.
There's only a certain number of days they can stay in the region, so that's important to actually know.
Oh, by the way,
between.
Since people always get mad at Maui, that is another reason if people don't know why Spirit don't attend as many events. Because one, to get the visa, you have to send in your passport if you're Russian, and two, you can only spend so many days in Schengen once you get that visa, so you can't just burn it all doing nothing. So that's why they have to pick and choose. When do they boot camp there? When do we turn down a smaller event? Are we practicing for a bigger one? No, that's an angle people miss. And then also, like I say, you can't apply for the visa off that. Like, that doesn't help you. So the weirdest part is this, you nailed it. It's not even what the rule is. It's that every rule that you make strictly must be enforced. Because if it isn't enforced, by the way, like, it's bad enough smaller TOs are doing it. I can already tell you based on what they've allowed with the majors. Mate, if you are ESL, I hope you're not listening, because you can do whatever you want, mate. Like, they're not going to come in and shut you down. They're not going to tell you, hey, we're taking the major off you. They've already shown that. They're not going to do it. So that's a really, really bad sign, because if anything, we want this to be applied universally to everyone with, like, the iron fist of the law. So I do want it, by the way, that the major guy gets punished for not doing that, because then the small online TO's not going to fuck around. He's going to immediately get in line and wind his neck in. Because I agree, some of those changes are mad. Like, we're not talking about minor changes. We're talking about stuff like, oh, hey, our LAN tournament is actually an online tournament till the playoffs. It's like, that's not a minor change, mate. You just fucking built the whole calendar. I'm looking months in advance. I've been invited or I've qualified to your LAN tournament with whatever, 16 teams. And now I'm finding out it's an online cup, basically, that I'm going to play in. And if I get locked out, I don't even come to the venue. Like, what is insanity is that? Like, whatever country that tournament's in, I never attended it. I was in it, but I didn't attend the tournament. Like, we've gone back in time 20 years there, boys. What are we doing? And by the way, I do think the shadiest one of all is the region one. You announce like a tournament with all these regions, then you just go, actually, it's not working out, so it's just one region, it's just Europe. Like, again, how is someone in a smaller region supposed to ever decide their calendar going forwards? Because it's actually the teams I do feel the worst for. As you say, because of VRS points, there are teams this year who have been fucked around with their chain jerked so many times now, where they turn one event down to get the VRS from the other, then the other gets its VRS point revoked, and sometimes the original tournament has it in now. Like, that can't exist that way. That is surely completely counter to how we're supposed to be set with this circuit. Because what's weird is when they made a lot of these bold things, I didn't know how they'd enforce it, but I thought these are great. Like, it is awesome that you have to know way in advance where the tournament is, what the format is, essentially, the real problem is, though, if there is no enforcement, that's all just fucking pipe dream, isn't it? It doesn't mean anything. And sadly, I even think because of the VRS crunch that everyone's stepping on each other's toes, we might have actually made the scene temporarily worse than it used to be. Because before, at least you stayed out of each other's ways because you can only play one tournament at a time. The circuit now is basically designed that if I don't qualify or get through with this part of a tournament, I immediately the next day start playing online qualifiers and cups because it gets me my points again. That should be a positive, but it's become like a negative in the community because, as we're saying, you just get all this overlap that's impossible to play. No, I'm with you. I think it's a very good point. And also, that's not a minor one. As you say there, that was a real example given. There were teams that turned down ESL Pro League qualifiers for other lands. Being in the ESL Pro League is a big deal. When you get into that tournament, that's a fucking big thing to be in every seat. You get loads of play, etc. That's not a minor thing to go, oopsie, I guess you don't get ESL or this fucking spot. Like, I know it's too abstract for a lot of people when you just talk about circuit and format and stuff, but that does piss me off, actually, because that is the sort of thing where it's like, Valve, you made the rules, mate. Surely you want to see them enforced. Otherwise, why are we making the rules? That just feels like some weird political shit you said one day to seem cool, and then you had no plans on ever delivering on. That's kind of whack. No, I'm with you. That's a great bad point.
And other TOs are also scheduling their events around the global calendar. So if you have an event that suddenly goes from being a LAN event to an online qualifier or an online event, you had other TOs who could have scheduled their events along the same time or had similar teams playing in them because you can schedule those matches at least and play them online. But when you change that suddenly, you're removing that opportunity last minute for other smaller TOs to also get that window of opportunity in, because otherwise the calendar is very packed.
Okay, Maui, go to yours then. What's your bad point?
Okay, mine is a team in a space like North America where it's already as dire as it is regarding just the teams and the lack of quality for teams. It's probably the worst offense to just cut out beneath the legs of your own team what is going on in terms of the backbone of the team of Wildcard is gone now.
Okay.
One of their best players is gone now. And the moves on the management side of this team had me kind of hoping that the plucky underdog in this roster would find a couple wins here and there at tier 1 events. But now I'm just waiting for everybody to get onto a new team. Okay, this just feels like a complete disaster. Sonic actually spoke pretty deep in length to, I guess it was Mira and Stryker, about what's going on with them. And honestly, the fact that Wildcard, who had Stanislaw, Stanislaw admittedly had a bad last season, okay? The last 6 months for him in terms of individual performance were abysmal. I would even say he might have been the worst fragging in-game leader of the last season.
Right.
And on top of that, the calling did not necessarily make up for it either. But the leadership aspects and the intangibles there, I do not think could be ignored, because the reason that Wildcard was put on the map as an organization in CS was because of what they accomplished in the previous Shanghai major with a couple wins under their belt there, and the fact that everybody knew, all the testimonials were that Stanislaw is tying this one together. Now with him off of the roster, Sonic, who has never been really talked about as being an in-game leader nor a cerebral player or any of that, is taking up the role because they wanted to make Friend the Opper who was a substitute for them last year. He played.
I think he was on their academy team.
Yeah, he was on their academy team, and he played one event with them last year in the stead of Fozy. He did pretty well. He was actually kind of decent. I mean, they were going to make him the in-game leader, and Sonic. This one quote really answered a lot for me. I mean, one of the members from the HLTV staff asked, for being at the IGL. Is that something you still want to do?
The interview
in the
was
future?
just Mira, by the way.
Oh, okay. So it was
just
edited by Striker. Okay.
Yep.
Well, Mira asks, is that something you still want to do in the future, be that in this team or another, for being an in-game leader? And he said, I don't think that's entirely where my strengths lie. Okay, first answer immediately out the gates is this: he doesn't really want to probably stick to being an in-game leader. I mean, he kind of softballs it, or he kind of sugarcoats it at the end of how he thinks he can still help the team because he knows the strats from Stanislaw. But for promising players like Fozy and JBA, and even Susp, and to an extent Sonic, to see them now in utter turmoil where their leader is gone, and it's been talked about. Like I mentioned this on another episode where talking about North American Counter-Strike and just how Stanislaw, or how Wildcard, like there were rumblings already that Wildcard was doing some shady stuff behind the scenes that was sort of breaking apart the team. Now Sonic even admits here himself that he thought he was going to be leaving the team. So for a guy that looked like he was going to be replaced by the up and coming player in Peeping, to now, and probably, I don't know what roster Sonic was going to go to, but now he's suddenly being tasked with being the in-game leader. This is just a mess. Come on. Like, no results from Wildcard in this season to me are going to speak to the quality of the players or coaching staff on this team, because if management behind them is just sort of with an iron fist just changing who's in, who's out based off of probably, I don't even know what reasons, then this is just a wasted project for me.
This team has been a mess for a little while, I think, in terms of the management side of things. From my understanding as well, is that Sonic is only IGL right now because it's this little transition window where they've brought in Friend and they've brought in Peeping. I think in the end, the plan is to have Friend take over as Op IGL. Sonic's just there basically so that they don't lose their VRS core, because so many players were going to leave the team that they were just going to entirely lose their VRS points and their status as a top 30 team or whatever they're in now. So the fact that Wildcard has mismanaged their team so badly that you have enough players wanting to leave your team that you're going to lose your VRS core is just abysmal, first of all. Secondly, you had this report that Peeping was going to replace either Susp or Sonic before the major. And the fact that Sonic seemingly learned of that through the report rather than any actual conversations with management before the major is absolutely absurd, because now they're playing the major. And you saw it in the interview that he did at the major as well, where he said that, like, now I don't know who to trust on the team or something along those lines. Like, when you have that conversation set up going into the major, you're not going to play well. And you saw it on the server. You saw them in those major games. They were completely disconnected. They were not playing at all like they did in Shanghai. And then you come out of the break and you have your seasoned captain suddenly benched. You have Fozy getting benched and him tweeting that, oh, this came as a surprise to me. And to me, that's just absurd, because you have this team that was actually showing some promise. And maybe, yes, you might need one change to take the next step up or start to actually, turn around some of those closer games. But to get rid of your captain who actually helped elevate the team past just being, a tier 3 North American team, because what stood out when this team was playing was those strategies. It was Stanislaw's calls. It was especially on Inferno. If you think about some of those games they played in Shanghai and even after, it was his calls that were winning that game. And you could see it on the server. You saw it talked about on the analyst desk afterward. The impact that he had, especially developing a player like Jeba, is immeasurable, but also to dispense with that and bring in another young player like Peeping and not have someone like Stanislaw to also develop him is baffling. And now you have this move that's coming, and you're going into the next part of the season where you have these bigger events already on the calendar, and you have Sonic talking publicly in interviews about how he's just hanging around to help the VRS core and still probably leaving the team. Like, what are you doing as management? This is not the first time I've heard about very bad management from the Wildcard side. And at this point, I feel like it's not going to be the last, because clearly they didn't listen to anybody with the fact that Stanislaw and Fozy are out and now Sonic's also going to be leaving. It's just boggles my mind how you mismanage a roster this poorly.
The whole thing is so mad to me, because from the outside, none of this is obvious or signalled or telegraphed or even has any real logic. And by the way, they haven't done a very good job. Here's one of the things they've totally failed with on the management side. You have to be amazing on your messaging if you do moves like this. Like, you have to, by the way, I would even say a little pro tip to you fucking noobs out there running teams. How about actually contact people in the scene that you know are going to talk about things on shows, etc. Like, if you have a legit reason behind it, by the way, for all we know, this isn't why, but I'll tell you. Let's say behind the scenes there was like some really inappropriate fight that two players had, and it meant that like you couldn't continue on with it. Again, you don't have to say that publicly yourself, but there's ways you can message that to the right people in the scene and they'll fight your corner for you, or make a space where you're not an idiot for doing these moves. These moves from the outside, for real, the joke is that guy's name is Friend. And this just looks like some mad nepotism where you've just let one player in the team pick his friends, players that some of us who are out from NA have never heard of, and now they're just in the team over like way more established names with tons of experience. Like Stanislaw, again, whether Maui's right or not, he is Wildcard as far as most people are concerned. If you ask people, name one, if you ask fucking, Family Fortunes or whatever they call it, you guys call it Family Feud in America, like, what would the number one survey option be of a player in Wildcard? The computer says number one, Stanislaw, of course. By the way, number two would probably be fucking Forzy or Sonic, like, and then these are the players you were trying to remove. By the way, the Sonic one's the worst one, because at least when I look at the roster, I'm like, okay, maybe they want a different IGL, they want to go a different route with the ARPA. Sonic's also really experienced, and then there's another thing, learn how to message. Why is he saying that in an interview, bro? Look, I love it, because I want to know it, but what's going on inside the camp that's getting out? Like, you know, I'm not saying you have to have rules for him, but maybe please don't say that, like, you were going to leave the team, because that makes it sound like it really was just going to be the new guy plus a bunch of other people, and like one original player staying in the roster. Like, it's so bizarre, and it just comes off, and by the way, unless you literally do a new complexity and hit the ground running straight away at those first line events, everyone's going to roast the shit out of you in this scene. Even if you're right, even if actually they were, let's say they were just a flash in the pan last Shanghai and they were never actually going to be that good with Stanislaw. Well, the one thing you had going for you is you had that name value, didn't you? People will give you a bit of benefit of the doubt. People are going to give you no benefit of the doubt if you hit the ground running and you are shit. If you just get wrecked in those first maps, and especially, by the way, if the replacement for Stanislaw and Forzy do badly, it's just going to be egg on your face. You might even have had justified reasons for removing them, for all I know, but I don't know what they are. You haven't even given me a hint. And then two, I just feel like the optics look so fucking bad across the board for this one. And then I've got to just throw this out there finally, is I actually feel like just because you were at majors, people did put a little bit of stock in this team along with callers. Like, this is an NA team. I can care about the squad. There's other squads that might even be better in online qualifying. It doesn't matter. You had like a bit of name value. You had a bit of presence. Now you've cut all that out completely. You start at zero again, as far as I can tell. The obvious joke, I was thinking of a way to crowbar it in, but I didn't find a way. I was going to do some sort of shit like, you know, if you want the team to rise, you need the right kind of yeast. And whatever, you get listen, if you know the deep law, you know where I was going. Look it up. Look up the yeast. Put in the name of Wildcard's owner, Yeast Beer. You'll find it out online. It's a funny story that shouldn't exist, but sadly does. But anyway, enough about Wildcard, the team in Counter-Strike.
One thing I'll add as well is that it actually is worse behind the scenes, from my understanding.
Oh, really?
Than
Holy
just what
shit.
we know, yeah.
Holy shit. Brilliant. Love it. Love that little detail. I just made it like it could be. Was it? No, it is. It's much worse. Oh, great. Okay. And obviously, by the way, just like with somebody and trash, will you guys give us a break? Do you know how easy the low-hanging fruit is? Like, with friends like these, who needs enemy? You know, come on, bro. They're all just right there. They're just low-hanging fruit. It's not even good material. Like, that's some shit I would have said really tired in 2015 at the end of a DreamHack Open. Not that you'd ever have been at one. You'd have been some nobody team, wouldn't you? And Amaranth was probably 11 at the time. Don't say anything. Don't anyone say anything. I'm just giving everyone a break on that one. We're just all gonna take time out. It's time on that one. Okay. Anyway, I'll tell you what my bad point is. And actually, this is a story that was breaking as we were talking, so pull up HLTV. It was announced just now that Falcons are going to skip the two Blast events. They're going to skip the Blast Bounty, which obviously starts online, remember, and then they're going to skip the Blast Open. And the reason why, unfortunately, is Kiyosuke. Because even though Montecristo also is Russian, because Kiyosuke is 17, they basically explain that it's harder to get the Schengen visa, and that when you do it, it starts as just a 30-day one, apparently. And that also, as pointed out in the previous answer, that's why I thought it would be a great one to just put into my bad now. Obviously, you already have to count your Schengen days anyway. You're only allowed so many days to stay within the region. It's not like you just have one and then you go to as many events as you want. Like, you have to really figure out like which ones do I prioritize. Now, the reason why I'm picking this as bad is mainly actually for the Blast side, because based on what they're saying about Kiyasuke, I don't totally blame them. Also, you scroll to the end of the article, they do almost themselves be like, it's not that big a deal in terms of VRS. And, oh, bloody hell, you won't believe it, but there's more prize money at that smaller tournament. We're going to end to be the massive... You know, that does make it seem a little bit like Falcons is like, oh, Woody Harrelson with $100 bills. Like, that's a bit too... Why did you even throw that part in, Falcons? Like, leave that part out, mate. Make it seem like you actually understand this is a bad thing. That makes it sound like you're laughing. Like, oh, no, I really could have applied, but it wouldn't be the right move. But anyway, for Blast, this sucks.
Blast sitting there saying, like, what they say fuck me for.
I know. And then, by the way, if you are Blast, why is it fuck you? Like, you're trying your best to put all these... But remember, with Bounty, think how many fucking pros and fans have gone, I'm so bored of the same tournaments every month. Right, okay, we'll create a totally new format called Bounty. By the way, great concept, where, like, you challenge better teams, and then the more money, the higher up the rankings they are, the more prize money. So if you actually upset them, which did happen, by the way, Na'Vi lost to, like, Eternal Fire, etc., you get, like, a crazy amount of prize. That is dope. What a great concept. And even, by the way, the fact that's a rare example of a tournament starting online that even makes sense, because who gives a fuck if you're out after round one? You just go off and do the other shit. So the idea that you're now gonna... Remember, PGL's been screwed over because of the club share. Now Blast's getting screwed over with one of the number one... Like, by the way, no matter what you think of Falcons, they are fucking box office. You all know whether you hate them or love them. You want to see them at the events to win or lose, right? The idea you're just going to miss out on them, and you even just find out at the beginning of the circuit, like, this fucking sucks, mate. Because one thing I feel like, if you tie this topic together with all the VRS things, don't you feel like this year we've sort of been sold a false bill of goods? We got told that amazing VRS system was coming, that we'd have all these tournaments for $1 million. It sounded like, to me, bro, we were just going to have the best circuit ever with crazy prize money, and every 2 weeks, like some Formula One level shit, we'd have like this amazing break. It feels like we never get it. It feels like we get like, what, every third or fourth event, all the teams are actually there, but then is there the prize money for that one, or is half the money going to the bloody club or whatever? Like, it feels like there's so many elements where it's like, I'm getting some like cursed monkey paw shit of like, yeah, it comes true, but not in the way you want. Like, what the fuck's that, mate? So even though it's just breaking news, I thought I'd throw it out there. I think it's just bad. Like, again, I want to see Falcons at every tournament win or lose. Come on, Nohte.
Yeah, I think the fact that they're skipping these two events, I get it for the Schengen visas at least, but the Keisuke also needs that experience online. He needs to play against these top teams. I also think the last point you made there was actually pretty crucial, because when we saw this VRS invite structure come in, everyone thought that we would have, you know, if not all the best teams at the big events, you'd at least have, you know, a mixture of the top 10 and then a couple of teams below that. But because of all these club incentives and tournament participation agreements or whatever the ESL and Blast and PGL have behind the scenes, a lot of these big orgs are just choosing to participate in just those events. And then some of them want breaks in between, or they just are deciding to only compete in those events during the year. So you're not actually getting this thing that a lot of people hoped would happen, where, you know, you might have Vitality skip an event, but then you have Maus and you have, you know, Falcons, and then maybe the next best team after that is like an Astralis or whatever. You're not having these events where you have the teams that just can't get over the hurdle over Vitality, but they're playing these events that they actually do have a chance to win and get those event wins under their belt. You had at the start of the season a little bit of that, where you had, you know, Maus at Cluj-Napoca or whatever, but now that's completely fizzled out, and you have these teams skipping a lot of the events that you'd think they'd attend. Funny enough, I think them attending Fissure 2 is a pretty good tournament to go to, because it will be that kind of opportunity. I actually don't mind that. But the fact that they're skipping Blast London is surprising, because London's not even part of the Schengen area, so I'm not sure. The only thing that would involve would be them not having his passport to actually send to get a visa for that, and so maybe that's why they can't attend it. But at the same time, when you have a team like Falcons, who everyone is mega excited to see with Keisuke, and they're skipping two of the biggest season opening events, is just...
By the way, you're also right. There's another thing, Falcons. I'm trying to give you guys a fucking benefit of the doubt. You won't help me. Like, you're just shooting at your own basket at this point in time. When the guy who is explaining to us your very specific visa situation essentially suggests that your Schengen visa won't work in the UK, which isn't in the Schengen area, I'm starting to feel like Kasade, like, you just fucking suck across the board. Like, it's bad optics. It's just bad optics, bro. Come on.
Yeah, someone in my chat was saying that before this came out of their statement to HLTV regarding them skipping the Bounty and Open, someone just thought, oh, is this because they played the Zonic interview? because that.
They were punishing them. You mean? Oh, you're right. That was a big scandal. You're right. That wasn't that long ago. That was the blast, the one where he was like call something or something, right? Isn't that the tournament we're talking about?
Yep. So that's I feel like they might actually have a point there, because this doesn't feel like the most reasonable excuse for not going to the Blast Open.
You think this is like a veiled fuck you to Blast, basically?
Well, when you say all of the Visa stuff, but then you end with the less exciting to play line, I know
why
like
throw that in.
A little bit of bad.
I know.
Yeah, there's a little bit of bad blood there from the manager and the Falcons organization as a whole. I tend to lean towards it. Yeah, no, I just don't really see why the Schengen stuff is relevant for the Open. So I think it's probably 70% BS.
By the way, if they're really going to do that, though, they should have just leaned into it and made the whole thing like a bad Thorin segue. Like, hey, guys, we're just going to call something and we're going to not be at the event and do anything. And I guess hey, bro, just should have just done some fucking act like that, like a Sonic, It should have everything should have been a pun on that shit of the timeout. We're going to take a timeout on this one, all that shit.
I don't see also why, if you can't get Dexter, who is also Russian and name is Abdul Khalik Gasanov, to anywhere in the world, Falcons have it within their capabilities to get Kyosuke to various events.
Sure.
I think I don't see how.
By the way, that was probably the stupidest period ever in meta commentary on things like visas, when there was just speculation that was rampant on HLT forums, that he's from an area that has increased terrorism or something. Where is this even coming from? In a weird way, I love the stupid, really out there conspiracies that have no connection to reality. Those are the best ones, but that became fact, and people repeating it. I don't believe this has ever been said anywhere on the internet except this forum.
You Google these statements. There's just zero results.
It's how deep are we going?
Every good conspiracy starts with one crazy person, as I am aware with the air quality.
On the VRS impact side, I can understand the bounty bit a little bit more, because I think even Messiosa talked about it, and I think I saw another player or two talk about the fact that the bounty is actually not a great format for teams.
If you're the favorite, right? I guess you lose a lot if you're the big favorite, right? If you get wrecked.
Exactly, yeah. Right. You're risking a lot for basically one match, because you play one match and you're out, and you're then considered as a last place exit on Valve's standings, and then that really chunks down your VRS points pretty early in the season. And for a lot of teams, especially since Bounty is one of the first events, it then affects the rest of your season going forward. So that side of things I can understand, but overall, I think there's definitely some questionable.
You could even technically look. I'll be the HLTV forums now, Nohte. So no commenters come here, right? What you're saying there, you could even make the conspiracy theory. Wait a minute, Falcons just bombed the major. They've got this incredibly high-profile new signing, and you want me to play what as my first tournament? An online tournament where if I lose fuck tons of VRS points, or I can go to a Russian LAN in Belgrade where I just win fucking tons of money playing nobody. Which one shall I choose? Oh, wait a second, and you're telling me the TO that hosts the LAN I don't want to attend also fucked with our coach recently? Tell you what, it's hard to get into the UK with these Schengen visas. Plus, it's not as exciting. By the way, I'm with you. Why throw in the it's not as exciting part at the end there? That makes it seem like you were never in good faith trying to go. You were like, oh, well, it's not as exciting anyway. What's copiums? By the way, these are actual officials from their team. It's not like these are players like Sonic just say whatever they like out of school. You're supposed to have media training, a fucking communications person. Give me a break, Falcons. Will you actually spend the money on stuff that matters? We'll get to that later, though.
Yeah, all of what's going on with the Falcons really stinks. But you know what? You don't have to stink, because you can get Mando. If you get Mando, just like Thorin uses, I use it, I think even Kassad uses it at times, then you can smell great. So honestly, I feel like these products actually changed so much for me in terms of deodorant. I have two of them right here in front of me right now. I've got the whole body deodorant spray on the bourbon leather side. And then I've actually tried a new flavor out, the Cedar Grove over here. This one, it smells fantastic. It works really well with my natural body odor as well. masking it, but also just providing the right amount of coverage and everything like that. Sometimes you don't want scents that just conflict with who you are as a person. Okay. So no, Mando does a great job.
He's got those powerful pheromones coming out. He needs to just blend with it. He doesn't want to overpower it.
I call them aphrodisiacs personally, but you can say what you want about them.
I also just love how he's calling it a flavor.
I know. I got scared by that. He meant like the smell. I know. I was getting worried there. What are you doing with that exactly, Maui?
Why not? No, that's why I buy more of it than anybody else, actually. It's a little snack. Maybe shouldn't be talking about eating this stuff. No, this stuff is honestly fantastic, though. The way that it actually works instead of normal deodorants, which just stop you from sweating, this one actually, it allows you to sweat, but it blocks the odor for up to 72 hours. These products, they're baking soda free, they're paraben free. It feels better on my skin than other products I've used in the past. It also hasn't left any stains on any clothing that I've worn, which some of the ones that have varying products actually do. And also, our code actually gives you something different as far as I'm aware. From before, we used to only give you a discount from the starter pack. Now, if you actually like any of the products on their website, you can just get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code, which is CS2 at shopmando.com, and that'll also provide free shipping to you. So yeah, go to shopmando.com to show your support for our show and also smell better than Falcons.
Okay, shot at Falcons at the end again there. Okay, it's all good. We're the Blast now. Blast employee. Well, there you go. Blast employee Maui on a show taking another unnecessary shot at Falcons. When will it ever end? Anyway, Nohte, what ugly point have you picked for this show?
So my ugly point is Overpass replacing Anubis, and it's not because Overpass is coming in. It's purely because it's replacing Anubis out of all maps. Okay. I actually don't mind that Overpass is coming in. I used to love watching Overpass, and I think we never really got a chance to see it played with the CS2 mechanics properly. It was pretty brief and pretty early into the game, and now there's been a lot of the meta develop, especially with the way that CTs have become more aggressive and make more information plays. That was always something that they would do on Overpass. That was one of the first maps that really encouraged this. And I think having Overpass in the pool is great because you're going to see a lot of development on that side and the way that teams are going to approach things now. But taking Anubis out, especially combined at the same time with this update that has now buffed the CT economy, is just baffling to me because one of the biggest things with Anubis was that it was very T-sided. And that was partially because of the way the map's designed and the way that CTs have to play forward for information. But also the CT economy just gets crushed and then you're done for a lot of the time on the half on your CT side. Now that you've brought the CT economy buff in, I feel like watching Anubis play out with this would have been really fun. And I think the way the meta's developed on Anubis and the way it's changed the way teams approach a lot of the rest of the map pool as well, it makes for a pretty exciting map pool as it is, but also just the map plays out very well, I think. And I think teams have slowly changed the way that they've played, both with the E-box smoke, for example, where it used to pop in front of the door. Now they have the smoke that pops deep in that comes from the roof. They have these different tactics that, you have the Eternal Fire Aurora strategy where they had the smoke down on B and then they would sneak through and flank CT. There's a lot more, I think, that could have come from this map in terms of the way teams were playing strategically, but also from just the way it played out. It's different. And I think I really like that. And it added a different dynamic to the map pool because you don't have that many maps that are this heavily T-sided. And you have Overpass coming in as previously a heavily CT-sided map. We don't know how it's going to play out now necessarily because they did change a couple of things, like the railing on Heaven, for example, no longer has like a break in it or whatever. So there's a few things that changed, but I think replacing one of the slightly more T-sided maps in the pool for the CT-sided map is a little bit strange to me because it would have been really fun to see the dynamic of Overpass being the CT-heavy map and Anubis being this T-heavy map and seeing how teams picked and chose those maps as they, adopted their veto. But on top of that, you had a lot of people thinking, maybe Mirage is going to go out. And I'm not necessarily a Mirage hater because I actually think Mirage is a lot of fun to watch. There's still so much, yes, it's played out in a way, but it's played out to the point where there's still so much happening and so much adapting happening mid-round, and so many teams have played this so long that it never feels boring to watch. I don't think I've ever watched a Mirage, unless it's a complete blowout, that's been a boring game. So I actually don't think Mirage necessarily should have gone out, but you have Inferno, which I think has been in the pool for a long time. Even swapping something like, I don't know, Nuke, change up something in the pool where it would have been a little bit different. Whereas now you're taking out Anubis, which is, I think, only been in the game since 2022 or 2023 in the actual active duty pool. So the actual decision to swap this map specifically is what's baffling to me, because I think Overpass overall will be fun, and I'd rather Overpass be in right now than Cash, because I think Cash needs some time to actually play now that it's in the game, and Valve might want to change stuff now that they've bought it from FM Pone. So there's still time for Cash to come in eventually, but I don't know about this specific map pool change. I'm not sure about you.
Addressing Mirage first. Mirage is the best and most interactive map in top tier play for my money. It may not be the most fun for puggers that try to avoid it, or people that just grind 7 FACEIT games a day. Like my boomer stack of friends with full-time jobs don't love to play it because we know we're not going to be as mechanically sharp as these teenagers or young 20-year-olds that just are grinding all day. But beyond that, I'm glad that it's still in the pool for top tier competition. I would have loved to see Anubis stay in play with the new economy for reasons like you said, but mostly because by round 7 of most halves in a T-side campaign for anybody on Anubis, they plant the bomb and they begin hunting after 10 seconds after that bomb is planted. They just immediately start charging into every single crevice. If the CT's trying to save at CT spawn at beach, they're getting hunted. If they're trying to save in T spawn, they're getting hunted. The map is so small that there's only a few spots as a CT that you can save far enough away where the 40-second bomb timer is not going to give the T enough time to hunt you all the way down. But now there's implications. If the T runs you down, or there's only a couple of them, before they could just throw their lives away and they didn't really care all too much. There's a little bit more incentive now for them to not, or it's a reason to be dissuaded. If you're giving that extra $250 to everybody on the opposing team because that guy mows down a couple of your guys, then there's some greater implications, and you probably wouldn't see T's hunting as voraciously, nor would they, and the CTs might even try to play some angles where they're fighting a little bit more. I would have liked to see it, and like you said, I mean, just having that extra key piece of utility for the CTs so that they can play out some situations a little differently because of the buff that they would have had. I would have loved to see all of that. Also, I think the incendiary buff would have been good for them in a couple key spots. Like defending A rushes on Anubis felt so dumb when you would throw the incendiary down at their feet towards as they're rushing A main, and then they just charge on through, and then you look at your damage at the end and it was like 4 damage, 7 damage, 12 damage. It's like they just ran through and didn't care at all. But because the incendiary blooms immediately about 30% bigger, or to its full capacity immediately, that would have helped stop rushes too. Would have swung things a little bit more to the CT side, would have balanced out Anubis a bit more. Still think it's still inherently T-sided with all of the positions the Ts could take. But to Overpass has been one of my 3 favorite maps of the past 10 years. I love Overpass. It's so tactical. There's so much layering with strategy. The complaint that a lot of people have is that you have to play slowly. Like I don't see that as a problem. I don't see that as a big complaint that you have to take your time to take map control and then try to play with the rotations of the CTs to get the best fight you can on a bomb site. And with how it played out in the beginning of CS2, it was pretty good, but people are so much better at breaking smokes now that I would love to. I'm really excited to see when they smoke Monster or they smoke Divider on Overpass towards A. I want to see the T's break it. I want to see them catch the CTs off with timings. I mean, one of the most common smokes also in an A default is that you'd smoke the end of long A towards CT A bomb site as a T, like you know, to disguise whether or not you're coming up long A and you're gonna punch through it. Now the CTs can play back at that too, because they could break that smoke. They could shoot and boost around it, try to see over the smoke, and I feel like the interactions are gonna be really cool. And I'm really overall I'm happy about Overpass over Anubis because I like Overpass more than Anubis, but I'm in the same camp with you where I probably would have wanted to see Inferno retooled just a little bit and brought back into the pool, because even with the new patch that's coming out, I don't think it saves the fact that CTs recognize this is an impossible retake for us.
By the way, just on the Mirage thing quickly, I'll just give you a very obvious anecdotal reason as to why that shouldn't be the map removed. That's the map you all remember from the playoffs of this major. That's the one Mongols won on Vitality. That was the epic Spirit versus Mouse game. It's just the best. It is in the modern day, because now Inferno isn't Inferno, it is the new Inferno that you want to see as the key map in the series. That's the one, because you say, if anything, it's a feature, not a bug, that's played out. Everyone knows how it plays, so you sort of always know where you're at. Everyone does it all times in the game, and it was awesome, though. You're seeing people make reads, calls, post plants. By the way, I also agree on the Overpass one as well. The idea that's a negative, like you have to play a bit slow and tactical and make reads. We just had fucking Vertigo and Anubis in the map pool, like maps that are literally just like sit in the site and the other guys run in like a fucked up like bomb site take simulator. Like that's not CS. What, you have to actually layer your tactics and like move the CTs up. That is CS. That is what Counter-Strike is supposed to be. I know I sound like a boomer when I say that, but that is actually the game, believe it or not. It's not just like, did I shoot him in the head with an AK when I ran on the site? Like, that's CSTM, mate. What are you talking about? Like, that's a face it pog. So, first of all, I think actually it would help balance out the map pool. Then also, I've got to say, like, there's obviously a whole bunch of people in the scene that are much more happy than me. I'm with you, Maui. I love the map. I've always enjoyed watching it. But I'll tell you what, here are the following people. Your careers have just been saved. Snacks, get ready. When you get on a team, homie, that was your map. You know what, Astralis? Good news. There's a map pack that you guys can all play. Yes, that's right, Virtus Pro. You actually have one map in the pool that might save your bitch asses who don't know how to fucking go in the sites. And then lastly, he's playing on Paravision now. That's right, Jim. It's back. Your map is back. You now have 2.5 maps in the map pool again. Well done. You're back in the game, son. Fully back in the game. And also, I just enjoy it as a map. By the way, I will throw this out there. I'll tell you who this implies Valve hates and loves. They fucking love them some Vitality. Because they've done the Astralis. You know when Astralis was already the best? Then their Veto Perma got taken out. We already had Vitality were the best. Their least played map, aside from Ancient, was obviously Anubis, right? They still used to win it anyway. You're now just taking that out as well. That was like one of the only maps, like when Mongols did it, that like, I can't remember if it was IEM or Blast or something. You can actually potentially get a win on them every now and then. By the way, they're going to fucking dominate on Overpass. He was going to shit all over everyone's T
one of their
side.
best back in
Their
the day.
T sides are going to be unbelievable. If anything, you've made Vitality better. Meanwhile, move aside Thorin. I don't even get to claim to be the number one Aurora hater. It's obviously Valve. They took out, like, they let Vertigo stay 1,000,000 years until this team got really good on it, then removed it. Then they put in Anubis, went, how'd you like this map? And then they went, oh, I love this map too. Remove that as well. Like, and they're not even good on train. Bro, you must fucking despise Badger. I just think he's an overrated hack, but you must actually fucking hate him, Gabe and him. Like, this is crazy, bro. And then also, I'll just throw this out there. I also do think that I totally agree, by the way. The smoke change is actually incredibly exciting for this map. Think about how different it would be if you were going to the fucking A site rotating in as CTs, if the smokes are all down. Mate, now you can do all sorts of crazy plays where someone fires or throws a nade, then your AWP shoots out of the bank or something. I can see already in my mind so many post plants. They're going to get way more interesting based on this. It's going to be fantastic. I actually think this could be something of an antidote, and also it's another CT-sided map, like you say. Like, these are all things that we want right now in the game. Between this and the actual economy changes, this might make CS way more cool. I agree with you on the Anubis one, though. This might shock people, but actually, I'm going to spin this into hate on Valve again. Everyone hated Vertigo. Everyone. It was the least played map. No one liked to watch it. No one even fucking liked to play it. Every team hated it. It was the most permabanned map. The joke would be there were literally major playoffs where the whole discussion in the veto was who's going to be forced to ban Vertigo. That was the actual discussion. Like, so the idea that stays in the pool for like half a decade. Then Anubis comes along, which actually is a fairly canny map, and we only had it for like 2 years, and that's already gone. By the way, that wasn't even the least played map. That wasn't the map we all hated. That was a map that people had specialists. Like, that was actually, listen, even though it on the surface level looked like it had problems like Vertigo, it was a way better version of Vertigo in that sense. Like, it actually was a fun map. That was a fun map to watch play. I enjoyed seeing how people would try and attack the sites and double peek everyone, or if the CTs would take a gamble rotation in mid and get picked off by someone. I thought that map was dope. It actually, like, low-key was like actually consider it's not a classic map. It's actually a fairly good map. It's sort of a grower. It grows on you over time. The more you watch it, the more you watch the top teams play, there was something to that map. So I do think that's sad. Why did this have to be the map? There were so many other maps you could have gambled on and taken out, in my opinion. The obvious one is the train you just brought back in. Does anyone even fucking like that? Seems like no one plays it. No one tries to play it. It's the third map in the series. There's so many problems in how we do this. So no, I'm with you. I think it's a great ugly point to have. It's not good, it's not bad, but I agree. Overpass is good, but should it have come at the cost of Anubis? I don't know about that. Not really in on that myself. Maui, ugly point.
Mine is another Messioso point, essentially.
Okay.
I mean, something I've talked to him about, which is why that's why it was on the tip.
The thing, Maui, the reason why we have to remake all of his points is he actually needs to learn this. His problem is he is just a nerd who used to be an admin and now works as manager and sits there shuffling. Section 4. You have to sex it up, bro. You have, like Maui would come out like, wow, I guess Valve's just fucked the whole scene up in Sarsing. Whoa, front page headline. Yeah. What's going on? Oh my God, Maui's thinking so. Messi, you need some marketing, mate. You need to push behind your message because your work's great, but you're not hitting the streets like Maui. He speaks to the streets. You have to understand. He's got that fucking. He's got that charisma.
That's why, but that's why Messioso speaks to me.
Right,
he speaks to me so that I can speak. I'm his translator.
Okay.
You know? I code switch for the people.
Okay.
What he brought to my attention a while ago, and it really did come to fruition here, is that you look at these events that are already all booked for their invites, even all the way until the Blast Open Fall event, and the first 4 S tier events of this season practically have the exact same invite list because they all had to draw during the player break for their invites, because the way Valve makes the invites, makes you go through the invite process, is that it has to be an X amount of time prior to the event. And because that gap was between the end of the major and today for all of these events, for Cologne, Bounty, EWC, and the Blast Open Fall, we now have 4 events to kick off the season, which are all practically the same in terms of the teams. And I don't mind seeing the best teams in the world being at these events, but it's kind of what happens sort of at the tail end, because the VRS system is supposed to provide some level of mobility for teams that are, say, ranked 12th to 24th. But in reality, you're kind of just getting the same people beyond the top teams. Like even though these invites came out so much later, you're still getting I think Big Clan got to go to a couple of these, for example, which kind of felt like they didn't really accomplish a lot, but they were just hanging on by a thread. You still get, and maybe they should be in this, like, VPs practically at all of them, with the exception of really, like, say, Falcons. There's not really much of a shakeup for any of these teams or anything like that. And I just think that the way that the VRS is structured, in that it has to be done at this exact date prior, means that we're always going to get this. Like, there's no way around this until we find some solution to shorten the amount of time between the invites being sent and the tournament having to be run. And this is an ugly point, and it's not just bad, because the logistics of running a tournament and sending out invites and everybody getting their flights booked and visas and everything like that means that we might not ever escape this. But it's going to, once people really catch on to this, you're going to start to notice that the first 2 months of every season kind of feel very samey, and then it's just a weird shuffle between the top rosters for who takes the trophy. But in reality, nobody's really falling in and out of VRS standing, which is probably the biggest crime here. That the teams that are on the cusp, like the 12th ranked team, they're also getting invited to all of these, and they're probably not going to be moving all too much down from these two. So I think it's just ugly, because we're going to just see the same matchups over and over and over again, but not just like the best 2 teams in the world. It's just like even the 10th best team in the world is at every event.
Kind of goes back to what we were talking about before as well, with expecting that some teams would decline certain events and then attend, mid-tier, tier 1 events. Because when you have all the same teams accepting, you're never going to have any dynamic change in the team pool for events. Whereas you get this list and you have every team accepting the invite, it's not going to change anything. And you have teams that we thought, maybe in the, let's say, 5 to 10 range, that might decline one event and then decide to play like a fissure event instead so that they can actually win it. It ties exactly into that, because that was the expectation. And I don't know if that was Valve's expectation, but that's just not happened. All the teams will just keep choosing to play at these ESL events, the Blast events, and the circuit is going to stay the same. And that just makes for boring, not Counter-Strike overall, but it makes for a boring narrative for the upcoming teams, because you're just going to have the same pool. They're going to likely, especially because the VRS isn't changing much for that kind of team, they're likely playing against the same teams or same couple of teams per event that they're invited to, because the seeding is the same. So you're not going to see any change for the competition in terms of who these teams are playing either. So it's not only giving them a chance to prove themselves against other tier 2 teams or other bottom tier 1 teams, you're just seeing them probably get trashed by the same couple of teams that are at the top and then not get a chance to actually prove themselves. So I think it's a pretty good ugly point, because having the top teams at events isn't bad, but having no change in this lower rank of the invites is just, it does make for a boring schedule over the course of the first couple of months.
I don't actually have tons to add on this. So what I would just say is this. This is an area where I will make a naive, but fucking optimistic plea to Valve, which just goes, when you make rules like this, or you frame the circuit in a certain way, what I wish you would do for real is just give like a reason as to why you chose to do it. What were you trying to accomplish? What were you reverse engineering? What type of circuit, essentially? What do you want the incentives to be? How do you want it to work? Like, do you want it to be like you're talking about, where it's like similar sets of teams and there's a coherence between events, and it really is like Formula One, it's the same people every month or whatever? Or do you want it to be where it's like, you earned your spot from how you did in the points before, and so you get to start out the circuit strong, and then you'll, later in the circuit, you'll lose your points. If you just gave a reason why, it would help me try and figure out, did you actually accomplish your goal? Because sometimes I feel like these ideas feel like something someone spitballed in a fucking room somewhere, but it's like you didn't have a Messi also there to go, yeah, but what if this happens? Or yeah, but last time this thing happened with this other team, and you go, oh shit, yeah, I didn't know in practice it worked. Because I feel like so many Valve ideas sound like abstract ideas that they think make sense, but I always say, I wish you could dry run it though and see what happens. Like if a team loses a certain amount of tournaments, how long does it take them to drop out and decay? Essentially, because the question you want to ask, if you're Valve, you're the emperor, you run the whole scene. You can determine the way this whole circuit operates. You can make it just however you want it to be. So I just want to know, just because then I'd have a better sense myself of how ugly is this? Is this a good point? Is it a bad point? I want to know what you were trying to do. And this is where I'm now, the Thorin persona reasserts, I'm going to get cynical. I don't know that you do know what you're trying to do. I feel like you're just throwing darts at a board and trying stuff. And then if it works, you go, draw a circle, hit the bullseye, sick. And if it doesn't, you go, well, try again next season. Although, as we've pointed out, by the way, this ties into all our earlier points too. You are playing God with literally like teams' entire seasons and years here. Like, they're trying to plan things around how your system works. And then another thing is, I get that it's because it was flawed at the beginning. You do keep changing every bloody season too. Like, you can't, feels like every 2 months you change something in the VRS system. But the whole point of VRS was the idea it would be set for years and we could all navigate around this. Like, how do we navigate if you just change where the island is? I was headed in this fucking direction, now it's over here. So I don't have much to add, but I think it's an ugly one. Now I'll tell you, go on, add something in if you want.
Yeah. I mean, I think the prime culprit of this is, when we had the partner leagues, there were a couple teams at the bottom that nobody really cared to watch. And then I think those were like EG, NIP, and Big. I feel like they kind of stunk up the bottom of all of these. To me, and this is, okay, I'll make some prediction for this season. I feel like that's going to be Heroic. I feel like Heroic are in a position right now where it's just too much inexperience going on with this roster, too many moving pieces. I don't have a lot of confidence in this Tobiz guy that's coming in. So, I mean, if they're able to put something together, great. But they're at the first 5 events of this season. They're at Fisher, they're at Cologne, they're at the Blast Bounty, they're at EWC, and they're at Blast Open Fall. And it's the exact team. It's the exact culprit of who's benefiting from this sort of structure when all of these, the snappy led teams and like all the teams that are just right beneath them are just like, when is it going to be our turn? Well, hold on for another 2-ish months. And by then, the problem is that like, you might even just expect at some point Heroic's just going to figure it out, but they're going to get to trial themselves against the best teams of the world so many times that they just get such an unfair advantage versus teams that are knocking at the door but didn't quite get the invites.
Yes. Oh, and also the last thing I'll throw in is, again, I'm not somebody who's super knowledgeable at this, but as far as I can tell, you've also made the cutoff so extreme, because the difference between being in these tournaments and then being the guy who has to win like the 5 CCTs in a row, that just feels like the difference is ridiculous. Remember, like, a bad game loses your VRS points at the wrong time, but then getting into the circuit feels fucking impossible. It feels like you're back on some snappy qualifier into a qualifier into a blast spot that there's only for that one tournament scenario. Anyway, I'll tell you what is...
Even Liquid, for example, actually, with the EPL qualifier that they just lost, they were 2 ranking spots below a direct invite to EPL. And yet, because they were ranked 17th instead of 15th, they had to play this online qualifier, which they lost, and they're now out of EPL.
Yeah. No, by the way, great example also of like you've set a whole roster, invested people to have all these lands. You're not even going to fucking be at some of them. Now, I'll tell you what isn't ugly, and that is obviously all of the wonderful merchandise that the Last Free Nation, we even chill out our own shit now, mate. We have a shop, lastfreenation.shop. We have all sorts of great gear there, don't we? We have like founders shirts, which have like for a limited time only, it's until something like the 3rd of August at 11:59 p.m. PST. You can buy a founders shirt with the logo of LFN, and it has like an actual numbering on the corner, and there's a limited amount of them. So that will be the first and only run of those ones. If you want to get in early and support us, also, it's not ugly to support our great show. And obviously, help us out. Yeah, there's the mug you can buy. They've got like a keychain. They've got some posters of some of the foreplay art when me and Richard Lewis and Monty do those reviews of movies. And also, they did actually last few weeks run a giveaway. And so I can announce some of the winners. They did a merch giveaway in the LFN Discord. And the following members, Kidneys, Mio Sotis, and Mag Kuchin 45, Fighter Pilot and Sleepy have all won. They are the lucky winners. You will all be receiving a keycap keychain featuring the Last Free Nation logo. Someone from LFN will reach out to you to help get those over to you. More winners will be announced throughout the week on other shows as well, by the way. So support your favourite shows on the Last Free Nation network directly by purchasing brand new merchandise at, it's on the screen, www.lastfreenation, all one word, .shop. Get LFN t-shirts, joggers, desk mats, mugs and more. We ship worldwide with free shipping to the US if you order more than $60 worth. Be sure to pick up the Founders shirt before the 3rd of August, basically at about midnight, because then they'll be gone forever. Now, we will be gone, not forever, but at the end of this show, after this last point, which is my ugly point. And I've actually made this a little bit open-ended. Listen, we're not going to go, it's not going to be a hot take point made like a 40-minute segment, but I feel like this is something we can each say something about. I actually am going to use as my key point for this, as my ugly point, the way that we attempt as outsiders who actually have no clue what they're doing to evaluate how good a job performance coaches are doing in esports is actually doing my nut in, guys. Because I can tell you the best example is the most recent one that you're all going to get wrecked on when I mention it. You're all going to think, you picked the worst example there, Thorin, because I'm going to pick the dreaded Lars Robel, the mouth of Sauron himself from the evil Falcon. Except here's what you all forget, all of you. He was the Astralis performance coach! So when you all said the best thing about performance coaches is they level you up, like, you know, Astralis, when he won those 3 majors back to back to back with them. He wasn't there for the first one, by the way. That was that like Finnish woman who worked with Ents. He was the one there who did it. That's why he then, after, by the way, went and did the Zonic and won in Vitality as well with the national roster. Second person to do it after Carrigan and FaZe Clan. Like this guy, because in Falcons, he is in Falcons, and just like Zonic, he's getting wrecked for everything. People are now doing it where everything this guy does is wrong. So all of a sudden, the idea you have a boot camp where there aren't PCs, he must be a moron. What does he not understand the way the game works? The idea he's telling people, are you ready to get up early in the morning and set their schedule for the... What a moron that play like staying up late. You are aware, guys, these are all the things he did in teams like Astralis, but because Astralis won the major, you not only all said, brilliant, you were all like, what a genius, you've revolutionised the industry. But now if he does it in Falcons, if they'd actually turn around and lose the tournament, he's like the reason they lost or something. So again, I don't actually claim, by the way, to know pro or con what you're doing in this. It's like, if you don't know, by the way, Lars Robel even has like a brother or something that's worked in other orgs, and I think like maybe even North or whatever, and he wasn't successful. So maybe he does the same things and it fails. Again, I actually don't know how any of us can evaluate. I have a hard enough time with coaches, boys. Like I'm only hearing fucking timeouts or interview fragments. I'm trying to like deduce like the Rosetta Stone. What are they talking about? Are they dissing him? Are they saying it's all right? But performance coaches, right? This area, I always tell people, has nothing to do within the game. It is things like, what is your lifestyle? How do you communicate with each other? What exercises do we do to bond? And what I don't get is weird is, you know when everyone memed on Chris J with that thing, like I knew they'd lose because whatever, Simple wasn't at that birthday. That's like what you, that's what we're all doing with performance coaches though. We're just picking weird, wacky angles and just being like, how could you ever have a boot camp session without a PC? By the way, if you don't know, I'll tell you a very quick detail. Do you know that everyone in 2016 thinks it's genius that Zeus and SK Gaming, when they were the number one team, had like 2 hours of theory sessions before a major, ESL Cologne, that they won, because that put them on like a level no one else was at. Because back then, by the way, I can tell you, people like Fnac didn't even used to watch demos. Like, no one did. So, like, that was considered revolutionary. But by this logic, you'd be a moron, because what you do and talk about theory outside the game, get in the server and headshot people. So, again, a wide open one for this one, boys. No, where are you coming at this one? You can come on any angle. What do you think of this topic?
I agree with you a lot, actually. It's funny because I almost made this my ugly point as well, because I think a lot of people don't understand what a sports performance coach does, because maybe they don't actually follow sports.
I don't know that I do, by the way. I'll say that as well. I don't know what they do, mate. Yeah.
But the thing is, like, maybe they don't follow like any of the actual organizational side of sports as it is, because you know that the sports performance coach isn't meant to actually do the coaching in game or tied to anything actually in the game. It's about the player health. It's about the player energy. It's about actually keeping something like that sustained throughout a day. For example, like you said, the Mondesi waking up early thing, the matches in Dallas or in Austin were starting at 10 a.m. When you have a player whose schedule is set so that their natural sleep cycle is set that late, A, yes, it does take quite a while to change, but B, if your matches are starting at 10 a.m., you need your schedule shifted earlier. That's just the reality of it. So changing something like that isn't something that the performance coach should be clowned on. It's something that he's trying to set up for success as they go forward. And that's like, I think a lot of people see these kind of things and they latch on just because they want to hate on Falcons or they want to hate on something that they don't understand the actual background of, because people will go and talk to coaches and try and see what they do. It's similar to like the Taz thing where people saw all those timeouts and they're like, this is all he does. This has to be all he does. He never has any insight in any timeouts ever, which if he didn't, he would have not lasted a week there. So when you get these little tidbits of what organizations are putting out as to what they're trying to do outside of the game to improve, and then you extrapolate that and say this guy's doing nothing because they're doing a no PC boot camp when they spend the entire rest of the season playing the fucking game, is insane. When you have a new player coming in, a player who's never played tier 1 before, and you have the kind of experienced players like Nico, Mondesi, you need to bet him in a way where it's going to work as a cohesive unit, and you're not going to do that solely by playing the game. You need to understand the personalities outside of the server, and I think that's something that Lars Robel is really trying to do as well, where you need that connection, and having a couple of days of bootcamp without a PC is not going to suddenly make Kyosuke shit the bed, or it's not going to suddenly make Falcons 10 times worse. You're going to spend the entire rest of the season at events, at boot camps, playing the game. Having a few days where you actually connect off of the server and trying to understand how people approach the game or how people react or how they feel emotionally about certain things, whether, maybe Kyosuke understands that if someone gets aggressive or in his face about something, then it shuts him down. And then Nico understands that, or Mondesi understands that. Then you can understand as a player that this is something that you have to watch out for on the server. Maybe you don't get as angry, or you don't turn that attention towards that player in a certain moment, and it's something you talk about after the game. These are the kind of things that you would understand in this kind of no PC boot camp, at least from my understanding. And I think this is something that a lot of people just latch onto to hate because they already want to hate Falcons, and they're trying to take any angle possible to do that.
Well, the reason so much criticism is directed at performance coaches is because there is an incredibly limited amount of people that can actually break down what's going on in the server that points to failure at a high enough level to make meaningful or interesting enough contributions to the news cycle or the space. And the worst part is, as someone who has done that in the past, who has said, oh, hey, this in the server is not like, this is wrong because of XYZ reasons, the ever-present excuse is available for any player to just get into your replies and ratio you by saying, well, we don't know what the comms are. It's just so you really at this point can't actually acknowledge what's going on in the server half the time, because someone will always just but actually you. And it's just, you just can't even feel confident about saying anything about the server-wide stuff. So then, but however, I can tell you that I personally feel incredibly groggy when I switch one day from being a night owl to a morning person. Okay. So I personally can tell you that if before the biggest competitive tournament, I switch my sleep schedule and I feel groggy, I'll perform worse. So it's much easier to latch on to this. Okay. And we're just always grasping on for narratives and reasons and answers. So anything that we can relate to will naturally be easier to understand than a choice made by an anti-strat, which comes up from a coach, but then the mid-round call from the IGL has changed, and we don't have all that information. We're not privy to it. But I do know that drawing a sword, a shield, and fire is probably not going to actually help me out in any way. So when I see a non-PC boot camp and a bunch of kids' drawings on the wall, I don't think that the best time is being used here.
Okay. I'll just give one last example to end the show, which goes at Iska. I think this is a perfect example, exactly what I'm talking about. It's Phil Jackson, the legendary basketball coach, if people don't know, won 11 championships as a coach, right? When he went to the Los Angeles Lakers, so he already had crazy cash in, won 6 titles with the Bulls already. When he went there, supposedly, the story goes, he actually had them do things like, as well as like meditation, all those famous things, he actually would do sessions where you would play without a ball. Now, notice how, because of the way I set that comment up there, you don't immediately go, what a fucking moron. Because at the time, because they then won 3 championships with the Lakers, it was considered genius. People thought, what a unique thing. I can tell you, by the way, if he'd have been on the worst team and he did it on that, that would be the story that would ensure you never get hired again. I think I made my point for you. But I also agree with Maui. Doesn't, by the way, that's why I made it ugly. I don't know if any of this stuff helps or not, but what I do find weird is everyone else thinks they do. And also, by the way, that Monacy one has so much, I hope everyone notices that your logic has such room for abuse in. By essentially, your logic is, cause Monacy is sick at the game, anything he does is right. Like, if you can't see where that could go dodgy with the simples of the world, and people like Donk, like, mate, they could be doing any fucking shit, couldn't they, and still winning the game. So, I don't know about that one.